Seems like it's streaming.
Cool. So then the only other check you'll want to make is take that link that folks would be using to go to this, and you can open in another tab, and that'll give you a sense of if it started.
I'm posting it here. Can you check? Just check.
Yeah, so it's live on YouTube.
All right.
Cool. All right. Well, I will mute here and be on for the first few minutes, and then I will pivot out.
Yep. Okay.
Feel free to go into the green room with them, Britt. I'll stay here for the screen share. All right.
Oh, I need to. Hello. And it is at the hour. Are we
All right.
ready to start it?
I think so. Stop sharing, let everyone in and start the recording.
Yes. Thank you. Can we let people in? Hello, everyone. Familiar faces. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Happy time of the day, wherever you're calling in from. While we are waiting for folks to join, I invite you, same procedure as every day, to rename yourself. And also, if you want to let us know where you're calling in from, please rename yourself by clicking on your picture. And there's a drop-down menu, and use the last menu point, rename, and add your role next to your name. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to our third day of budget reconciliation. Lots of familiar faces here. Hi, Nana. Hi, Kevin. Please rename yourself so we all know who's in the room. And we are letting people in before we continue. We have around 50 to 60 people today. And we also, while you're coming in, please spread the word because we are live streaming. And so if you're connected to your Cardano peers, please post this video link wherever you can for those who cannot make it today or are already in bed or not yet up. This is a global forum, so we are time conscious. Hi, Andreas, familiar name. Please rename yourself, everyone. James, Dave, hi, hello. Marek, good to see you again. Jonathan, to rename yourself, please click on your picture. There is a 3-dot blue button. When you click on it, a bit on the lower end, there is a menu called Rename and Add Your Role. Just like you see some folks have added Intersect Ops Director, hi Nick, or DREP or Vendor. So we know who's in the room. You can see here Tatiana has added Vendor. And for those of us who are new and haven't seen me before, my name is Britta Wolfekammer. I'm representing Voltage Control today and will be facilitating together with Katharina and my team in the back. There is Paula, there's Chris Federer, there's Shari, there's Diek, Erin, and Eric. And Chris Looney, hi. So you can recognize ourselves by the VC behind our names. Hi, Adam. Thanks for calling in. We give it a few minutes before we get started. Welcome, and please let's warm up the chat. Let us know where you're calling in from. I'm calling in from Nairobi, Kenya. So I'm in the middle of the Eastern and the Western Hemisphere. It's 7 p.m. here. Happy to see you all. I'm posting the YouTube link again for those who've come in late. Brooklyn, New York. Fantastic. Oh, that's Chris. Hi. And here's the YouTube link again for you to share with your peers and Cardano family. London. Hi, Nick. Mark from the UK. Hello. And whoever has come in now, please rename yourself. I know I'm repeating myself, and you will probably hear it a few times during this process. It's very important we know who you are and what your role is today. Rename yourself by clicking on your picture and move over the top right corner. You will find 3 dots, and in there you'll find the rename menu. Hi, Michael, good to see you. And as we are hitting about, let's give it a target of 50. Oh no, we have 7:05. I think we need to get going. Yes, welcome to day number 3 of the budget reconciliation workshop process. And as before, today we have a little bit of a different approach. The process is going to be the same, but we have Intersect. We have a part allocated to Intersect to talk about their administration services. And then we have a cross-budget conversation. Anything that you guys want to know that's still open, you can voice questions. And before we go there, we're also going to ask who is in the room, which vendors are in the room, what proposals are they representing. But before that, we have a few other things lined up. Purpose, of course, of this reconciliation workshop is to give as much information and clarity to DREPs to be informed and make informed decisions regarding the budget. And with that, I'm going to ask if Danielle is ready to give a few minutes or a few sentences to get into the process. Yes, there you are.
Yes. Hey, everybody. So day 3, I want to give an update. We did make some changes based on a lot of feedback we were getting from community members over the weekend. So in terms of the reconciliation process, we now are kind of recalibrating with these workshops against a new polling deadline. So broadly, in case you haven't joined us yet, reconciliation and later, once we get to the budget info action and treasury withdrawals, this is the time for DREPs to be determining how much they would like to spend in 2025 out of the treasury. And that has to stay within the net change limit, but it can go much below the net change limit if desired as well. We are using workshops for discussion, clarifications, and kind of working together in collaboration. We've seen a lot of vendors connecting the dots, and that's been really cool to see across the ecosystem. Today, I think once Intersect does their presentation, it's a little bit of a different format. Voltage Control will talk with you once we get there, but anyone's able to propose those topics and questions related to their presentation. And then vendors, committee members, you are also welcome to support with your perspectives as experts and also to clarify if there's anything that somebody is stating incorrectly about your proposal or you would like to clarify. More information about this process overall in the QR code if you haven't seen that yet. So some of the dates, as I was mentioning, are changing, but it's not completely settled because we were just making some adjustments over the weekend. So in red here at the bottom, I guess I'll jump to the bottom and then go back to the top. The polling in the Ecclesia tool is now set to close May 5th, 23:59 UTC. It was previously set to have closed before this workshop. So the structure of today's workshop is a little different than the agenda that was posted on Luma. So apologies for that, but we're giving more time for the community to get their questions answered, put in their final decisions in the poll because the volume in there is quite large. And people were really just requesting that they get more time there. So if you haven't heard about it yet, the Ecclesia polling tool has been developed by community members Adam Dean and Matt Orchestra. They put in an incredible amount of work to get it ready. And it's an MVP of a flexible on-chain voting tool that we're using here for the budget reconciliation process, but they envision it going beyond much more than just that. What you will see in that tool is that the proposals that sat in GovTool were imported at 5 p.m. UTC on April 24th. So that made up the first ballot, which is asking DREPs of all of these proposals, which ones would you like to go in or out of a budget info action? So the the changes associated to today's agenda relate to the fact that we don't have any of those polling results yet. So we're going to revert a little bit back to the same format we were using over the weekend to just continue working on getting clarifications from vendors as needed and vendors connecting with each other as needed as well. So final little piece here is just a thank you to the GovTools team as well, because similar to Adam Dean and Mad Orchestra, they worked really hard to develop their tooling space for governance or for budget proposals in a very short timeline. And without that sentiment from there, we would not be able to have done proposal reviews asynchronously. So they also helped make all of this possible. Next, I wanted to call out another piece of sentiment we were seeing and concern related to the epoch used in this Ecclesia voting tool. So basically, at the ledger level for governance action, the stake is calculated on epoch boundaries. So even when things are on chain, that's how it's working. The original poll was set to conclude on April 28th, and that only spanned a 2-day time frame. So it was very specific which epoch would be used, as it wasn't crossing epoch boundaries. But now that we have extended that voting window just over the weekend, we haven't gone back and revisited which epoch should be used for this purposes of the stake weight in the system for voting. So we've confirmed with the tooling team that that is possible to change that snapshot being used, that epoch boundary. And we will be asking the budget committee to make the decision as to which epoch they would like to use for the final calculation of poll results. Also, just as a framing note here, this poll is being used to gather essentially off-chain consensus. I say that lightly because the tool is actually on-chain. The Ecclesia tool will be using Cardano, but in a way, this is not the official final say. This is getting DREP consensus as to what they want to see in the budget info action, but they have to vote on-chain in an info action to put the final decision, and stake will certainly be able to move while that info action is live for a period of 30 days for people to move their stake around to reflect their final decision. So the Ecclesia polling is meant to give a reasonable idea of where community sentiment lies around what should be in our Cardano ecosystem budget. I think that's the last slide I have. Yeah, so this just reinforces in terms of next steps. There's polling in Ecclesia, then that allows Intersect to build a budget info action. Others in the community may be also building budget info actions to submit. And then those go on chain for voting, and following the budget, then treasury withdrawals that are pursuant to that budget can move forward as well. So those are kind of the discrete decision points for DREPs just along the way, in case you were not, just as a reminder, I guess. With that, I will give it back to Britta, and feel free to put questions in the chat if you have them. We'll do our best to respond.
Yes, thank you, Danielle. I have seen some comments in the chat, and I understand that this might be frustrating, the short notice change. Please remember, this is a new process and a pilot, and we are prototyping what is the best way forward. I am not in a position to answer these questions, and I'm not sure if the people who are in a position are in the room, but I point out those notes in the chat, and if anyone is in the position to answer them in the chat, please go ahead. I think we will not see a snapshot of the polling tool as mentioned by Danielle earlier. And with that, I am calling out, not yet, but I'm just raising that Intersect will be presenting. So whoever is going to present for Intersect, get prepared. Not now, but in a few minutes, I will call you out for your time and for your room to present whatever you want to present. For now, sorry, just a few housekeeping messages. One is we have an international audience. If you need translations, there is caption possibility to, and I put it in the chat, you can activate your caption in the language you prefer. I have this in Japanese as well, but I haven't seen any Japanese. I think they're still at night. So feel free to use those captions. And for everyone who's talking today, just an encouragement to pause and give room and speak slowly. Not everyone is a native English speaker, and this will also help to understand context better. All right. And this, I need to remind myself about this. And so the key here today is to highlight important issues and questions and keep it brief and precise and pointed so that folks can understand and reply and also process the messages. All right. And now just to remind you of a few housekeeping rules, apart from the ones I just mentioned, and putting them in the chat. Please turn off any potential distractions, notifications, so you can be fully present today and focus on the topic. Trust the process. We've done this before and things may change. Be open and curious and rather than judgmental. So I invite you to be curious. Listen to understand. Often we are already ready to fight back or convince or persuade. I invite you to listen to understand. Move back and move back and move in. That means if you are someone who likes to talk and point out your view, not everyone is the same. We want to have every voice is heard, different perspective. So please give room to everyone. All right. And seek progress over perfection. Yeah, that's why we're here. We're trying to improve the process, but we want to move forward rather than being perfect. And I know I'm repeating myself, but it's important for us and how we collaborate together today. And with that, yeah. I'm opening the floor for Intersect. This next round is a little bit different. It's a presentation and a time for Intersect to present their view. And then there's a Q&A, and I'm asking Intersect, as I understand, to moderate this time. The time is open. There's no given ending as for now. So I'm moving back. If you need, I know there is an issue with power outages in some countries. If you need us to come in as facilitator, be here. So let me know who I need to ask to open the floor for you, Intersect.
Hi, Britta, it's me.
All right. And that is Nick, yeah? Okay. And I'm not putting up the timer for you, but here you are, you're live, and here you go.
Thanks. Hey, everybody. It's Nick here from Intersect. So my role up until recently was very much responsible for membership and community hubs. Recently, with our executive and leadership changes, I've moved more into an interim director of operations role. So very much intrinsically involved now with the processes of all of the back office and working around how we facilitate all of this budget proposal work. Jack was also supposed to be here today, but unfortunately Jack lives in Valencia, so he is caught up in this Spain-wide power outage, which means he doesn't have any internet, any power, any mobile network, and unfortunately he also had quite a lot of the things that were going to be presented, which is a bit of a problem. Nevertheless, I think I'll get through talking quite quickly because I think there's a lot more time that needs to be spent around Q&A being asked than anything else really. But one of the things that Intersect delivers or will be delivering potentially as a pivotal element is this area of administration of contracts. So I have some slides which I'll share if you bear with me 1 second. Okay. So one of the things that around this whole proposal process is that we've had over 200 proposals submitted so far, which people are probably aware of, but each proposal needs an actual administrator to actually take care of the responsibility of the delivery of that contract. And most people have actually decided so far through the submission form, the overwhelming majority have picked Intersect as their administrator. If you haven't picked Intersect as an administration, you have to provide your own administrator who will deliver the same function here that I'll just quickly talk through to give some context on this. So when you put in a budget submission proposal, when that's finally, if that's agreed and you're successful and it goes through the treasury action process, there'll be a number of functions as an administrator that Intersect will have to deliver on behalf of your proposal, and which we've mapped out here very, very high level. And we'll come on to talk about the smart contract proposal in a little minute. But there's 4 key functions that Intersect will have to deliver as an organization on behalf of your, or to facilitate your contract. One of those is the actual creation of a physical contract, because most of the proposals will also require a physical contract, which then will prep up and set up your smart contract. There's lots of nuances within that, and that's going to take a huge amount of organizational work to make sure that we can actually execute that within the period of time required. You then obviously have the financial process to that. So not everyone will get paid in ADA. So it will be, how do we handle currencies around the world? How do we handle currency in and out from ADA? And how do we facilitate that entire process of making that happen per contract? Both of those, in terms of contract creation and signing and financial process, will sit under our procurement function within Intersect, which is currently scaling up in terms of moving people into that function from around the business, just to facilitate this exact process. Then we've got delivery assurance. So not many people will have probably interfaced with the work that was done here during last year, unless you were the recipient of a grant, at which point you probably would have come through a scaled down version of this process. So what that will do is it actually reconciles between the physical and the physical delivery and the milestones themselves as what's actually got to be delivered as the milestones of each of those contracts as we go through time. And that needs to be done by a number of different functions. So either it could be done by an Intersect committee if they feel that there is the skills and willing there to do that. It could be done just by the Intersect team, depending if it's just a matter of signing off something being done and it isn't technical based, or it could be done by an external party who has skills in a particular area, all of which Intersect facilitates. And then you'll have auditing as well. So there'll be an oversight body which will have final say on effectively preventing payments if a milestone hasn't been met, because as the smart contract will dictate, at a certain milestone, that payment will automatically be available and those funds made available to the recipient of the smart contract. So if there is a milestone that has not been met, it will be escalated up to an oversight body to potentially stop a payment if required, and they will make that decision. And here you can see just the overview process and where those 4 elements that I've just talked through come into the process in terms of contract creation and signing, through then to the financial process and facilitation of that, then into delivery assurance, and then right at the end of that chain in audit. And as you see, it's a very complex thing to be able to deliver. And Intersect is geared up and gearing up to be able to do that on behalf of the majority of those proposal submissions that have selected Intersect as their administrator. And here it just covers some of those elements and the value being delivered for that. But essentially, last year, in 2024, like I say, through the grants process, there was some of this facilitation done, there was some of this delivery assurance done, but it was on a very small scale. And actually now, extrapolating that up, being able to deal with that at scale for all of these proposals simultaneously means that roundabout ballpark figure based on the amount of submissions that have been made, that in the next 12 months, there could be over 1,000 milestones that Intersect would need to have to deal with in terms of delivery assurance and audit. So it's a huge amount of work that will allow this whole process to really work smoothly and to underpin the operation of this process right the way through all of these smart contracts. So I just wanted to share that because I don't believe we've had too much discussion on that previously, and it certainly wasn't talked about too much in the Intersect submission itself. But I'm pretty sure we're probably better off spending the majority of our time on specific Q&A. So Britta, do you want to open up the floor for questions?
Yes, I wanted to ask if you want to handle your Q&A yourself, Intersect, or if you need support from us, whatever you prefer. So, yeah.
I mean, I think that there's a few people in the call that would certainly be able to add value to answering some of the questions, that's for sure. So I don't know if those people will want to become involved in that. So certainly Adam is one of those. Certainly Lloyd is one of those. I think Taylor from an Intersect perspective can certainly talk again about that administrative process that I've just talked through.
Okay, so let me do this. Let me call out the questions who are that are in the chat. And again, this is a bit different from before. This is questions for everyone. The floor is open for everyone. So the first question that has also been seconded even is from Neil Davis. What are the mechanisms that ensure that basic fiduciary duties such as double booking people?
I'm not sure I understand the nature of that question. Apologies. If you can you just repeat that? I didn't catch all of it.
So there is, I believe, a contractual, a constitutional requirement for auditing and fiscal auditing, right? How do we make sure, where is the mechanism to ensure that a supplier, for example, that has two different contracts doesn't double book its people and therefore engage in sort of operational fraud? You've said nothing about any form of basic auditing of the fiscal reporting or how money was spent, which is I see as an essential prerequisite to any open and public process.
Sure. I mean, I guess the first part of that is around the you mentioned people there specifically, whereas there is an intent that the milestones must be agreed up front around the actual delivery. So it's not necessarily always a people-based thing. It's an outcomes and delivery-based milestones, but that might not be the case in every situation. So it might be a situation whereby these end-to-end processes aren't. Sorry, Neil, go on.
Yes, I was going to say several of the contracts are time and materials, right?
Sure.
Several of the larger of the larger contracts are times and materials too. Okay, so I'm saying that without that this is part of asking. There are small contracts that have asked for the time and materials, but most of the big and some of the big ones. Okay? So it's not something we can say it's just a small amount of money.
Sure. No, I agree with you. And actually, I'll go away and look at that, and we'll have to come back with some more specifics in terms of answers, certainly around that. And certainly in a situation where people's contracts are related purely to time and materials and hours-based contracts.
I mean, there's
Okay.
also even with a deliverables-based contract, it's impossible to know various things. Are you saying that if it's a deliverable-based contract, there will be no fiduciary checking?
Oh no, no, absolutely. So every contract will have tracking of milestones, and payments will be related to achievement of milestones. We also have a number of template contracts relating to different types of contract delivery, but I'm not sure we fully finished the template that's related to time and materials as yet.
Sorry, that didn't answer the question. You said I was asking for deliverables. Are you saying you have completed the framework for deliverables for a deliverable-based contract at this time, and it does not contain that fiduciary check?
No, sorry, I was saying there are what we've done is we've created, or we're in the process of creating, a number of different types of template contracts which deal with different contracting scenarios. They're not quite finished yet, but all of them will have a fiduciary duty for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Apologies if I wasn't clear.
Thank you. There are also some hands up and some more questions in the chat. You choose.
Oh, I'll let you choose. Otherwise, I'll be accused of being biased.
Okay. Let me do this. Johnny and Ken Eric, please hold on your thoughts. There were some questions in the chat that came before, so please keep your hands ready.
Brenda, this first question here that's from Ryan Sikora in the D-Rep. It's a very nuanced and difficult question to get through. So let me try to summarize what we've already discussed in the chat thread there before we go too far. And Ryan, call me out if I've got this wrong. However, what you're stating is that basically that if a committee is the auditor on a smart contract, that the committee seats could effectively be bought, by the voting process. You could buy a bunch of committee seats, and then the auditor would effectively just pass on that smart contract, allow those payments through, even if the vendor isn't doing the work. That's effectively the attack vector that you're talking about. I think I got that right. I want to see if that's pretty close.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Good, great. Okay, glad I clarified that. So there's a couple of things to that point, and Nick, if you don't mind, I'm going to take this for a minute.
Please.
First of all, on the smart contracts themselves, the group of people who are making those decisions are not Intersect. It's a group of people from the community that will be the ones that stop the smart contract audits, not Intersect. Intersect would be making recommendations from the committees that would hold weight as to whether or not those decisions will be made, but they're not the ultimate decision makers there. So that's the first part of that conversation. I do agree with you, however, Ryan, that there is a potential attack vector there that Intersect could have committees stuffed. You're right. That is something we have to continue to work on and improve, whether it's KYC of our members or whatever we choose to do to fix that vector. Completely agree with you. We've got to work on that, but it's not as effective an attack on this measure because those people will be selected in the smart contract by the D-reps in this process, and they would be from the community, and they would be the ones making that decision and holding those keys, not Intersect. So that should, keep that part for this year and for this particular part of the process. That should eliminate that concern. Is that helpful, Ryan?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Having like the community, like the D-reps be signatories in addition to Intersect or something like that, I think that would work great. Yeah.
And that's how it's designed. Just so you know, that's the Pi Lanningham and the Zerberus team. They're working on that script. It envisions these other folks from the community having those keys. Intersect being the recommender. Hey, you probably should stop this one because of X, Y, and Z. And then those community members make that decision.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, just having different checks and balances like that, I think that works out great. Thank you for the answer.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. And that should be it, Britta. That was a tough one, Britta. Sorry, I just needed to jump in on that one.
We said it was open, and that's totally fine. Intersect was going to do the Q&A, but I am also understanding the team is thin today. So I am asking Nick, Johnny and Kinetic had their hands up. Do you want to take any of those, or do you want to tackle any of the questions in the chat? And for your info, Nick, once a question in the chat has been opened to the floor, I'm putting a little voice head to it. So that means it's been answered on the floor. Okay.
Yes, just a quick one is that we might want to check in a second. I think Jack has just messaged me to say that the power in Spain has finally been resumed, so he might well be joining us anytime soon, hopefully. So we should look out for him.
Okay, good. We will.
Okay, yeah. So look, I'm happy to take Johnny's question on.
Yeah, I'll be very brief. It's just basically a restatement of or a follow-on from Neil's request for the templates for contracts from Intersect to any supplier to include fiscal reporting and allocations of money from treasury withdrawals as a part of the contract for auditing compliance with the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't explicitly say what type of audit. I could argue that, and you could argue that, but still, auditing is not just technical. In the opinion of the TSC, it is also fiscal.
Yeah, look, completely 100%. And that's great feedback. So we will take that away and make sure that is representing those. So appreciate it. Thank you, John.
Okay, thanks. Kinetic, you had your hand up. Has that question, has your issue been solved? Maybe by Lloyd? And otherwise, I have a question here. Oh, that's just a note. It's not a question, it's just from Duncan. It's worth saying that this process of delivery assurance has been running within the Intersect for. It's not a question. That one has been answered. Oh, there's a question from Nicholas. I think that's been answered by Lloyd. Yep. Yeah. So as I can see, there, yeah, keep them coming, your questions. It's your floor. And please, if you have a question, please, can you name it question? The chat is going to be running, and which is good because it shows your passion for this topic. Please, if you have a question or an issue or a topic, please mention it, topic or question, just so it will help us to follow up. Nick.
I think one of the things to mention as well is that obviously, I think one of the contentious points or people want to understand a little bit more about is that in the Intersect budget submission, we're asking for, well, we've stated 20 million ADA, but at a 2-to-1 rate, so it's $10 million. But it's more important. Oh,
sorry,
sorry.
Nick, breaking up. I think your internet is a bit weak. You've been breaking up. Just a note.
Hold on. Am I still breaking up, or is that okay?
No, you're okay. Yes, now it's better.
Apologies for that. I was going to say one of the things that obviously is a big discussion point is always funding. So as part of the Intersect budget request, we've asked for $10 million, which is at the set rate of 2-to-1, which is 20 million ADA. It's important to point out for that we're focusing on the dollar value, not the ADA value. So I mean, if that was today's exchange, or if that transaction was done today, that's effectively only 14 million ADA rather than 20 million ADA. So there's not an ADA over 20 million that, or even up to that we'd spend, given the times that we would take those tranches of funds and convert those into dollars, because obviously we have to pay things like external services, salaries. If anything in there is over the 50-cent rate that is stated, we would put in a mechanism to instantly push that back to the Treasury or hold on to it throughout the year in case ADA dropped below 50 cent. But in an ADA positive situation, we would push anything that wasn't used back to the Treasury. So it wouldn't necessarily mean that we spent it all or would even need it all, just to make that really clear.
Okay, great. And there's a question that goes conveniently with this, what you just mentioned. New question, are audits and inputs for those audits made available to the community? Oh, it's already been answered. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, this is one that came out of the budget committee's work in the early days. There's a planned quarterly meeting where we would go over everything in the previous quarter that had come through all of the contracts in the previous quarter, and then also at the end of the year there will be an annual audit performed by a third-party external auditor that would look at all of the books that Intersect did and provide an audit, and all of that gets published on chain. And in fact, the audit working group that is part of the budget committee is made up of community members, and those community members get the results first, and then they present it to the board. So it's the results go to the community before going to the board, before being posted. So they will always be, it's community first and transparent for all the audit results.
All right. Thanks, Lloyd. And there's a question from D-Rep Min Bui.
Sorry, Britta, could I just answer that? You need to separate out here the technical audits from the financial audits, Lloyd. So what you've just described is the case for financial audits. I don't think the procedure has been agreed for technical audits. And what I would say is absolutely there needs to be definitely some summary given to the community. We need to be clear that the milestones have been reached. We need to, if there are reasons why some milestone is determined not to have been reached, we need to expose that to the community. But what we do have to be aware of is that there could be confidentiality issues, including perhaps some security concerns. So it might not be possible to give all of the input that led to a particular decision. And
that's fair, Kevin. It's the same on the financial side. There are obviously things that we cannot release from the financial side as well that are proprietary held information that's private, but it is all of the public. Everything that can be public is public, and the private stuff has to be held in those private groups. That's the only things that are private is the financial information, the membership information that can't be shared, and the security information that can't be shared. Those are the only three things that are ever private and Intersect by law. They have to be.
great.
So totally agree with you.
Right, thanks. There's a question from dear Rep Minbui. Nick, I don't know if you've seen it regarding the template in terms of scope and deliverables for your SOW. Will you need a single set of milestones or multiple parallel SOWs under one agreement?
It's a good question. I would say well, I think that will probably be determined by the actual situation of what's being delivered. Obviously, preferably you'd have one statement of work and one set of milestones against that statement of work. If it's not appropriate and you need multiple statements of work, then I think we'd have to break that down and understand what that looked like. But I think currently the templates cater for a statement of work and a set of associated milestones to that specific statement of work. I hope that's clear.
Hey, there's a question from Ken Eric, who also had his hand up earlier, and it was seconded by two folks. I don't know if you've seen it, Nick, and you want to take that next, because that's the next question. Maybe if you want to take that question, Ken Eric can also explain, or you just go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think it's more a topic for that Ken Eric is asking for the DREPs to justify themselves why they're not voting towards Intersect, as I understand. But I'm perfectly happy to ask him for clarification.
Ken Eric, can you speak?
Yeah, I can speak. So here's the thing. Full disclosure, I am elected for a civics seat. I'm hoping to get elected there. But I'm also a DREP here for the Nordic community. So here's the thing. DREPs are currently now voting down the Intersect budget proposal. Threshold now is about 61% of the DREPs, and it's 59 that has been voting. So that gives me a very good general direction where this is heading. And then I'm asking I think the topic that we should discuss here between the DREPs is what alternatives are the DREPs looking at? Are DREPs because if we downvote the Intersect, there will not be any Intersect there. Do the DREPs really want that every proposers are going to do their own info action and treasury withdraw? So what is it actually that the DREPs want? That is my questions to the general community, because we risk putting the Cardano ecosystem in a severe limbo with tons of proposals and less organized control. And like Nick said, they are doing auditing of the companies that they contract. There's a lot of legal stuff up in here. So I'm just very curious as a DREP what the other DREPs are thinking and why are they downvoting, and what can Intersect do to get this flipped around, because I believe we need Intersect.
I can see if I can just, I see Adam's hand is up. Adam, do you want to answer this question? If not, I'm
Sure. I will just add to what he is saying, that, as a member of the Intersect Board of Directors, I'm also looking for feedback on what the DREPs would like. I'm very hopeful that the DREP votes so far are preliminary votes based on some of the comments I've heard from DREPs saying that they need more of an explanation of what the Intersect leadership is and the Intersect board is planning with our proposal, how we can adjust to their needs and how we can be more responsive. We are willing to work with the DREPs to make sure that we are doing what they want as administrators of the budget being put forward, and as a proper stewards of any responsibility that is given to us within the ecosystem. We definitely don't want to say that we're making demands or that the ecosystem can't run without us, because we're very aware that we're just one part of the community. Just want to say that we're very open to feedback, and whether we get it here or in other avenues, the board is listening, and we are eager to work with you all.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I appreciate that, Adam. Thank you. And Jack has also joined, so
yeah.
we have some more bandwidth now.
Yeah, Jack's in the room.
Yeah, hi all. Sorry, I've had a horrible day today, and I'm hoping my network can hold for a little bit. I got back from holiday last week. Well, they didn't have a huge amount of holiday given the changes that we did last week. But anyway, I do apologise for being late and probably a little bit out of context just to the conversation right now. So I will try to support and field some questions and give my opinion on stuff. Yeah, so apologies, Britta. I don't know if there's an open question that I can help maybe provide some context to, or where's next.
Yeah, Nick, maybe. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, I was just going to say to Jack. So it's open-ended questions, but I think following from Adam's statement, I completely agree with that. We're here to listen. We're here to take as much feedback as we possibly can for consideration. Ultimately, we only exist to facilitate the wishes of the community. So anything here that comes at us is only positive feedback as far as we're concerned, and things that we can act on an action.
Yeah, and maybe I'd add something, just my 2 cents on the weekend and the changes we put forward on Friday. I was really overwhelmed by the positive response, actually. So I thank you everyone that did that messaged me, sorry, and commented back. I really was taken aback, actually. But that is only 24 hours, and things change, and things need to move on, and work to do. And I definitely echo a lot of the sentiment I see on Twitter, and I've been feeling like this for a long time. I sort of come from a cypherpunk background myself. I rejected legacy systems of the current system, with all the institutions that we have today that are helping govern our politics in our national governments and local governments are really just they just work me up and rub me up the wrong way. And Intersect has unfortunately become a little bit like this. We've become a bit too hierarchical, far too top down, and it's something that I want to completely reverse over the next sort of 3 months. And Nick and I are working on an action plan this week. It's obviously sort of day one, if you like, on our new leadership change and our new direction forward. I feel very empowered by the board, by Adam and the rest of the board to make the right changes. And a lot of the feedback I'm seeing is just, this budget process, unfortunately for me, has just been bad in so many ways. I could lose count on how many things have gone wrong here. And we will be doing a thorough retrospective, because it just cannot happen again. And frankly speaking, if it happens again, then it's on my watch. And I'm not going to sort of just let myself be impacted in that way either. I am an ADA holder first and foremost. And so I'm trying to be here to do things differently and to do things better in a decentralized ecosystem. So on that, we are, like I said, Nick and I have sort of day one in this new world. Obviously, I have been here. That it's sort of me saying that I've just joined, and I haven't. I've been doing this for a long time, so I do take that critique as well. I'm not going to try to pull the wool over people's eyes that I haven't been involved in this. I have been, but I feel empowered and given the trust now to make these changes. So we'll be doing that. I think when it comes, let's just talk brass tacks then on what we're dealing with here. We've got a 20 million ADA ask based on a 50 cent value, so it's about $10 million. But that is very likely to actually never materialize as a total disbursement. I was thinking about this over the weekend. I traveled back from Japan with my family on the weekend and did some thinking on the plane. But for me, what we're doing now is a sort of budget allocation window. Now, just this is me personally speaking, right, for the moment. What we've done here in this process is conflate a bit too closely the budget process with a treasury withdrawal action, in my opinion. What we've got here is a bunch of vendors and proposals and specific values and specific initiatives that these proposals are planning to do. That is very much a treasury withdrawal type action rather than a budget action, as in my definition of what that is. And I think the Constitution could help us here with revisions potentially in this area. I think it is not quite the best language around how we do budgets defined in the Constitution, and that's something that we can look at for the next time round. It doesn't help us now, so we have to be pragmatic. Nevertheless, how I'm looking at this at the moment is that we are seeing a budget process that is very close to or akin to a treasury withdrawal action. That's fine, but what we're missing from the budget info action, and which is also fine, is more detail on the safeguards around disbursements, around how the smart contract is going to work, how oversight is going to work, and how the oversight board on the smart contract structure is also going to look. And I think that is going to come through very clearly over the next 2 or 3 weeks, as it has already started to do so with Pi and the work that he's been doing. We're going to document that as we go, and we've been doing that already, to form the treasury withdrawal so that it's a lot clearer when we're actually approving the money to be withdrawn, because right now we're not doing that, but we're just allocating that this money can be withdrawn as an approved budget if it isn't approved. And I'm talking about everything, not just Intersect. And when we do the treasury withdrawal action, then we need to be really clear on what are the safeguards and checks and balances around disbursements and everything I just mentioned. And so we have a few weeks, obviously, to do that. We've got to get a budget passed first, which is 6 epoch. And then the treasury withdrawals could probably start pretty quickly after that, because we have pretty much everything we need to know in this process right now for a treasury withdrawal. So we've sort of done things a bit back to front, in my opinion. So where Intersect is involved, and go back to Intersect's proposal, and this is sort of off the cuff here, so I'm sort of building in public with you guys now, so I would appreciate feedback and where my head's at with this. When Intersect's 20 million ADA asks, for example, let's say it's approved and we get people's support. When it comes to treasury withdrawal action, that 20 million ADA will go in, like with everyone else, will go into a smart contract reserve. What we're calling the treasury reserve smart contract. We might need to figure a better language for this to be clearer. Now, when disbursements happen, which will be done on milestones, it may be done on time and materials, it depends on what contract people have, but for Intersect, it may well be milestones. And at that point, the ADA value will be determined at disbursement point. So it's likely, highly likely, that we won't be dispersing ADA at 50 cents, it will be at 75, let's hope, or maybe even $1, let's hope so. Which means a lot less ADA is coming out of the 20 million ask. So it could, theoretically, and very likely, in my opinion, be that Intersect actually only gets 10 or 14 million, for example, based on the ADA rates of when disbursements happen, with the rest of that surplus being swept back into the treasury at the end of a given period. So it is a max allocation that could happen at a 50-cent rate, but I think it's highly unlikely that it will play out that way based on our on the market and timing of disbursements. Additionally, I don't want Intersect to withdraw the full 20 million ADA into our own coffers and straight away. I think that's important that we still continue to demonstrate that we are value for money and we are making the right changes and we are moving forward in the right ways. And so there may be a quarterly disbursement or amounts of money that cover the administration bit. Because at the moment, and to be frank about this, we have hundreds of proposals or many proposals that have Intersect listed as an administrator. So what does it mean? We have to, if IOG and the rest of the proposals get funded with Intersect as administrator, but we're not funded as an administrator. And at the moment, we're not taking 5%, by the way, there's no 5% fee. We've got rid of that. And that's part of the flat fee that we're proposing today. We need to think about, there's a lot of parts of Intersect that need to be still proven. And what does it mean to cover the ecosystem as an administrator? And there'll be a value associated to that. And I think that's what Nick and I are working through this week. You will have to forgive us on timing, unfortunately. And I'm asking for forgiveness because we're just sort of starting in this new way here. There will be withdrawing much less than the 20 million as the first sort of milestone to build out our administration function as a core function. Alongside that, there is obviously committee works, and particularly around core upgrades and anything that we need to be doing from a facilitation point on our repos. And so there's some like bread and butter BAU stuff that Intersect needs to do regularly. Anyway, I'll pause there because I'm going on a bit of a rant, and before I lose focus, I can see a couple of hands, so maybe, Chris, if that's all right, I'll take Jenny's hand first.
Yes, just a sec, because a few things are drowning in chat, and I saw Jenny's hand come up. There's a question from Min Bui, posted at 7:45 regarding, it is also seconded. For each cycle, did every disbursed ADA or fiat payment map exactly to an approved milestone or expense line, no more, no less? And if not, where and why did variances occur? Variance is different of actual payment and budgeted amount. Sorry, I'm posting it again because it's up in the chat, and it's from, we can also ask Min to come to the floor and explain it. Are you here, Min? It's drowned in the chat, putting it
Yeah, I'm
up.
just reading. Sorry, I know I found it.
Here.
I'm just having a quick read. Sorry, apologies. Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think I don't have an answer, to be honest, right now. I'll just be frank with you guys. I don't have this answer. And so I want to see, and this is the part what we have to work on together now to get this unlocked. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's important that we honor what's voted on. So if a proposal is approved by DREPs as part of the budget process and it has a bunch of things that they're promising to deliver in a certain time frame, and they're chosen a certain type of contract will also depend on how this will happen, then the milestones need to be honored part of the proposal because the vendors have their own commitment to deliver that work. When it comes to what kind of payments they need, it will be dependent on what they've listed. And I guess we need to work through I don't have all the answers here. We'd have to work through the individual vendor on that, because I think there's lots of variance in terms of what vendors are asking for, time materials, milestones, that kind of thing. Anyway, yeah, I'm not, so it's a rubbish answer, Min, I'm sorry, but we'll note that down and we'll take that away.
Okay, it's good to be transparent here as well. I would suggest, from what I remember, Jenny, and then there's Max van Rosen. So Jenny had her hand up, and then there's a question from Max van Rosen at 7:49. So Jenny has had her hand up for quite a while. If you want to call her to the floor, go ahead.
I'm here. Thanks for that. Hi, Jack. Just like before I jump into stuff, I just want to, before we dive in, just want to take a moment to recognize Jack and Nick as you step into this new leadership role. The transitions like this are not easy, especially right now. Tensions are high, expectations are super high. So I just want to thank you for the courage to step forward and lead during this time. So with that being said, knowing me, I want to jump into the hot stuff. So for me, it has been, I'm going to focus on this because it's something that I've raised this concern many times during many calls, and it has to do with the contract agreements, right? So there's two particular things that, I mean, there's different things in there, but there's two particular things in there that I'm very concerned about, right? And I want to make sure that we handle this before we sign a contract agreement with Intersect doing things and handling contracts. We want to make sure that the contracts that you're going to be presenting to vendors or anybody that's going to be, you guys are going to be facilitating anything to, we need to make sure that we understand what this is going to look like ahead of time and not after. Because it has been my experience and the experience of other people that we've received contract agreements that I personally have not signed. So I gave up on money. Because I was not comfortable signing this. And I have spoken about this with many people before. And I want to know what's being done. There's two things in there that I'm concerned about. No, I did not see a post, Lloyd. I'm sorry. I don't know if you want to jump in there. But
just that they gave you the new contracts that they've put in for 2025. She posted them earlier today, and there have been some substantial changes from the last time. I do know your concerns because we've talked about them before, and I know they're deep and real concerns. But I did want to point out that they put Gemma put the new contracts up that are here. The grant milestone, software MSA, general MSA, they're all published now for the new 2025. Just to add to you.
Look at them. I mean, I appreciate you raising that to my attention because you know how much I've been pushing for this. So I just want to just real quick, I will look at them. I can't speak for them because I haven't seen them, but I want to make sure there's a couple things in there that they should be addressed. One of the things is like, there's a confidentiality aspect of it that speaks of even after the contract ends for 2 extra years, that speaks about non-public information. And one of the biggest issues that we have here is where's the line between what's public and what's not? And it has been part of the culture here that we don't know what we're supposed to say or not, what's under Chatham House, what's under what, who's where, what's what. And that needs to be more clear. If there's anything in there that says that you cannot speak on something that it's not public, then that line cannot be blurred. It has to be very specific. So that's number one. And the other one has to do with speaking freely. I have my notes here. I didn't want to forget. It's about speaking freely, and it's on their, I think it used to be on their liability and indemnity clause. No, that's not the one.
I know what you're talking about, Jenny. Yeah.
I'm sorry. It has to do with, yes. I mean, it's a very important one. And I don't know if it's 3 point. All right. So what it is that, yes, a 3.3 it used to be, which is that had to do with not saying or doing anything that shall or disparage Intersect, Cardano ecosystem, anything tied to Cardano, basically. It was, all the associations with Intersect as well. And that's another blurred line, right? What does that mean? It's speaking freely is the base of what we're here. If we cannot speak freely, we're going to fail. So bad.
Jenny,
that's
completely.
That's it. I'm done. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, Jenny, I can take maybe a couple of those and then maybe Nick can add something to it. So what could be public? I think there's probably a couple of things that can't be, just like names and addresses. I think there's probably some things we need to be conscious of there. I think most of us can respect that. There is a natural public thing for me in the smart contract work, right? It's going to be obvious like what vendor got what money when, and then wallets will be auditable by that process. And then to what Lloyd mentioned, I haven't seen that, Lloyd, either, so thank you for mentioning it. And I know Gemma and the team have been working on these boilerplate contracts. They need to be open. Now, hopefully, I'm glad they are. Sounds like they are. Sorry if I missed that. And we need to make sure that there's possibly, there does need to be a feedback loop on the community. So is there, like, we've got a lot of good people in the community that can review these contracts and make sure that they're sort of written in the right way. So that needs to be very clear on, like, this is the type of contract that this vendor has, and they can actually read that without the personal information in it, for example. And with the non-disparagement clause, that drops today. So Gemma, Nick, and that's my instruction, and that goes.
Yeah, can I just jump in there quickly just to say, with all of the clauses that you have mentioned there, Jenny, we've heavily adapted them and changed them now, and the boilerplates are online. So hopefully your concerns should be addressed. But like we said, please obviously review, and if there's anything else, then get in contact. But we have, like I said, from last year, really adapted these clauses to make things more fair and open.
Thanks, Taylor. That sounds great. Just to be super clear, then, because I haven't read it yet, we haven't got a disparagement clause in there on our back, because I don't want people can. The idea of I'm not going to enforce someone talking bad about Intersect, so it just needs to go.
And and just to add to that, Jack, as well, I think Jenny, your concerns are absolutely right, and I think there's a couple of symptoms of how they've come about, really, which was when we kind of spun up Intersect, there was this, we were moving at speed, we had to get things done very quickly, and a lot of the contracts that we took had what I would call standard corporate clauses in them. They certainly weren't designed or engineered or written for a kind of a Web3 world, that's for sure. So like you say, I would be equally as frustrated with those, and as Jack says, we will get those rectified if they haven't been already by the team, and it sounds like Taylor's already got that under control. But if you do have a review of those modified contracts, and there's still some issues with those particular contracts around that context, let us know, because they have to be right, they have to be appropriate, and it's completely counterintuitive if we have clauses in a contract that actually talk about things that are counterintuitive to what's being delivered in the actual contract. So yeah, look, we'll remedy that if we haven't already.
Thank you. I'll definitely look at them. And the other thing to that same issue, I will say if we can get to some sort of agreement, a commitment to make sure that everything that is not to be public needs to be very understood before it's said. People need to have that right to not be aware of information that they cannot be made public without their consent. So then we can create a better culture here and make sure that we are communicating freely and that we engage mindfully in non-public information as such, you know, with the confidentiality that it requires, with the respect that it deserves. So thank you guys. And yeah, that's it for me.
Thanks, Jenny. Appreciate you. Thanks.
Just wondering, just a quick question, Adam and Kevin, do you have new topics or is it this regarding this previous topic?
I was just going to add something to what Jack said. So what I was going to say is the EU and other funding bodies, they already face the problem of transparency. So what the EU does, for example, is to require each project that is funded to produce a very short, what they call a presentation, basically a one pager that describes the technical content of the proposal, what the objectives are, and probably some details about the budget, the total budget for the project, and the effort that's being deployed, just so that anyone can see that and understand how the funding is being spent. And then in addition, there are reporting requirements for each project. So with the EU, this is done on an annual basis, but you can do it on other bases too. And essentially what you expect is for the projects themselves to produce a public summary of the work that's been carried out, what's been done with funding, and to use that to justify the work. So that I think we can learn from others. Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, I agree. There's lots to learn from that. And more of a philosophical thing from me. I take a sort of, I lean towards, if you're using Cardano public money from the Treasury, you need to be a bit extra with your transparency, a bit extra with what you are sharing with the community. It's public money ultimately here, so we have to be a lot more open. And people that are requesting money from the Treasury, being funded by the Treasury, need to adhere to this. And it's not quite as simple as getting. It's not as luxurious as getting VC funding, for example. Yeah. Thanks.
Right.
I don't know. Go on, Britta. Sorry. Yeah.
I just wanted to point your attention. There are a few questions they may have drowned in the chat. One is from Max von Rossum, and there were also two other DREPs interested in that question. It's what are the biggest learning points according to Intersect of the budget process journey? What are you taking forward from these insights?
Wow. Yeah, where do I start here? Oh my God. I think one of the, and I respect everyone that's been working on this process, and I do have a lot of sympathy and respect for Lloyd. I know he's been a real trooper working on this process from a long time ago, and we had a process. I think that's important to mention. We had a process. We changed the process, and we've been adding in a lot of things in between all of this, and changing things has a cost, and we're bearing that cost today. And it's highly frustrating for me, and I mentioned this in a post on the weekend. I don't shy away from that. I think we can't do this again. We cannot change a process midway through a process unless it's unless it needs to change, and maybe we needed to change it. I'm not saying we didn't need to change it. I'm in favour of the new process because I do think it helps to streamline faster access to the Treasury and faster access to builders and people that need funding to get funding. So I think we've sped things up. There's positives there, but there's huge lift from everyone on this call right now doing this work and have been doing the work previously over the last 2 or 3 weeks. There's a new tool that people are having to vote on now again. They already voted on GovTool, they're doing it now again. That's another massive lift. And we just can do way better than this, frankly speaking. I don't know another way of saying it. For me, it's the cost of change. So after this, I want to get this done and dusted. I am in a position now where I feel like we just need to get this done to a 70% good enough. And what is the critical things that we want to unlock for funding? Get that done over the line in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Let's do it. afterwards, we can't do this again. I'm saying that like, oh man, I'm tired, and and I get paid to be here, and I know I get paid to be here, and I'm really respectful of everyone that doesn't get paid to be here and doing this work. So that's my sort of pledge, that we will change this moving forward and commit to building way more out in the open way earlier in the process, and taking learnings from the old way of doing it, the previous way, and then this way. Maybe there's a blend. Maybe we could say, actually, forget it, start from scratch completely, and let's build up from the bottom again. Anyway, lots to take away. I don't want to distract, I think, from what we need to achieve in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, Max, it's a fantastic question, and one that we will be asking ourselves for the next 2 or 3 months when we do a retrospective.
Thanks for that, Jack. I'm just pointing you to a question from Nana Vada DREP, and I know he's had his hand up earlier. It's at 5-9. Do you want me to read it out, or do you want to check for it? It's regarding.
Oh yeah,
you see it?
I see it. Thanks. I'm just quickly reading it. Yeah, I think conflicts of interest are a really interesting one, and we've got a lot of conflicts of interest, to be honest. We're not, if we're really honest with each other,
Sorry,
I see the same.
Can I just read the question so everyone knows?
Yeah.
I don't know if let me just read it quickly, and then you can decide if you want to ask Nana to the floor. Most of the active DREPs have been involved in the process since day one and are occupying positions and playing roles that suggests or may suggest a lot of conflict of interests, and especially with the Intersect and committee budgets. Are these DREPs allowed to vote in a decisive direction other than abstain? And if yes, how would they be perceived by the community of delegators and implementers? Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, so I guess it's a broader question as well about conflict of interest all round. If I'm honest with everyone here, and I think everyone can be honest with each other as well, it's the same people we see on these calls, it's the same people we see on X. There is probably only a few hundred people engaged in Cardano's governance, like at the level that we are all here doing now. So to be frank, there is lots of conflict of interest. There's multiple different roles people have. You could be an SBO, you could be a DREP, you can also be an ITC member, and you could be a committee member, and you could be a proposer for vendors. I mean, it's like tons of that. And the critical thing is being clear about what roles you play for DREPs that are voting on you, or voting on any proposal you may have. So specifically, committee members should vote exactly how they would want to vote as a DREP. It's a permission system. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you how to vote. I'm not going to tell you should abstain. It's not my position to, and I would never dream of it. So yes, vote in favor of a committee proposal, even if you run the committee, because that's fine. You worked on it, you're proud of it, vote on it. Anyway, yeah, that's my 2 cents. Hopefully I answered the question.
Just on the wider context of conflicts of interest as well, I had a call with some of our community members last week, and one of the 2 things that they wanted to discuss was exactly that, conflicts of interest and how we deal with that, or how we either self-report them, or how we have some guidelines for that. And actually, one of the things that they decided to do is that we're going to go to the ISC, to the steering committee, and recommend that part of the governance working group looks at a better policy around exactly that, conflict of interest. So it actually does have some fairly clear guidelines at a bit of a higher level on general conflicts of interest.
Great. Thank you. So just to point, I see your hand, Johnny, but just to point you, and then you can decide, there is a question from Chris Bayard, sorry, at 04. If Catalyst could help with any of the RFP and project administration tooling, that question. Are you seeing it?
Yes.
Am I not to talk?
Johnny, please hold. We're going by time, so I've seen I'm seeing your hand up. Just hold your thought. We're going through. Who put the question?
So sorry. Thanks, Britta. Yeah, I've read the question. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I mean, that's just a straight answer to that. Yeah, for sure. And we should definitely take learnings from Catalyst. We've been doing it for ages, and I think there's a huge amount of progression in fund by fund work that you guys have been doing, and I'm looking forward to Fund 14 if it's approved. Especially the quadratic side of things sounds really interesting. Part of the smart contract work is building a dashboard as well for always on transparency, so anybody can log in and see what's happening with disbursements and milestones. I think there's a ton of work that we could use Catalyst to help us, or at least the team to help us build that out, or do peer reviews at the very minimum. So anyway, yeah, Chris, we'll take that away 100%. Yeah.
Right, then there's a question from Neil Davis at 05. Before you answer that, let me know and I can call it out. And then there is a hand up from Johnny. You decide where you want to go.
I can go to Johnny. Johnny's, sorry.
Sure. Thanks, man. I'll be very quick again. So it's just in response to the conflict of interest thing and some context. There are already codes of conduct for committees within Intersect, specifically about conflicts of interest, and the guidance there is to anyone who is a vendor who is having devoted a proposal related to that vendor coming to a committee, they have to abstain as a part of that process. However, codes of conducts in the Constitution for DREPs are individual to those DREPs. So there isn't such an explicit rule that says that if there's a conflict of interest, they abstain. It has been evidenced already with some vendors voting on their own proposals with very high levels of stake that have a large influence on the percentage of support. So that's quite interesting on the DREP system, where there is an explicit rule within committees. There is not such an explicit rule in the DREP body.
Yeah, thanks, Johnny. Good points.
Okay, great. So I can see Andrea's question has already been answered in the chat, and so has Neil Davis' question. I think you've hooked up with Nick, and there's lots of answers in the chat. So, and I like that the community is mentioning clearly if it's a new topic or a new question. So thanks for that. It keeps us finding things easier. Right now we've answered everything either in the chat or on the floor. So keep your topics and questions coming.
Britta, sorry, just for my ignorance, can you remind me of the agenda today? We've got like 3 hours, I think, left, haven't we? A bit less than 3 hours.
Yes, so thanks for asking that. And also for those who are coming in late, we've changed it a little bit. The process is pretty much the same, but we have Intersect administration service. That's where we're in now. So
Okay.
Nick had presented earlier, and then we've opened the floor for any questions regarding what Nick has presented. And then later on we have a short break, and then we have budget conversations to be continued. And then at the very end, there was a question from Danielle that we're going to answer. I have to
just before we do that, Britta. So Nick, because we can make that the deck that you shared public, straight after this. Yeah, and just so we get feedback on that. Okay.
Yeah. So just as an overview, Jack, at the beginning, I shared some slides on the administration process and what that looks like from an Intersect perspective in terms of breaking it down into its composite parts.
Okay, nice. Thank you. Sorry, I've had no power at all today, which is actually kind of nice, but I was super stressed by having no power as well. So,
yeah. All right. And so this block right now is open-ended. We haven't set a time frame, so it's just we're going as we're flowing. And so that's basically the agenda for today, Jack, if that helps. And then we may have 1 or 2 breaks in between. We have 4 hours scheduled, also for those coming in new. And then there is a short time like before we close about change requests and how do reps want that to be processed. All right, so if you're good, we can follow. I've seen a few new questions coming in, and there's one from Philip.
Yeah.
You're seeing it, and let me.
Yeah.
Do you want me to? Please,
I'll read it out. How does Intersect bucket proposal decide what gets in? What happens if the total amount in the temperature check exceeds the net change limit that we currently have on change, so 350? Good question. So the cutoff date, I believe, is May 5th for the current voting tool. I I think, Danielle, I'm not to be on the spot, but you can probably help me out here a little bit. Following May 5th, if, let's say, the proposals that have reached the temperature check threshold that has been determined by the budget committee, if it's reached that and it exceeds the net change limit, let's say it's 400, we would need to hold a sort of another reconciliation call to say, okay, guys, what drops from this? And are we prepared? And what else also is in the ecosystem that's not coming through Intersect, right? We know that Amaru, for example, is not using Intersect's process, and they're going to be proposing their budget on chain directly without Intersect, which is totally cool. But we need to make sure that there has to be enough room, or we should be at least aware of that if we are aware of it. But Danielle, maybe you can help me here. Sorry to put you on the spot if I've covered that correctly.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest as well, we extended the date on Sunday for the polling. And so with discussions in the budget committee and the execution task force, it's not settled exactly how we go from here. However, I think you are correct in that if once we close the polling, it's above the net change limit, we will certainly need to have another discussion scheduled to work through as a community. How do we then get within the net change limit? But in terms of the exact schedule and topics and how that's going to roll out, we are working really hard early this week to try to get that very clear for you guys. But it's just, we have not recalibrated fully since we set a new date. But the way we were originally thinking about it is once polls close, there's another discussion around reconciliation to look at what has been passed above that threshold and see if there's any final decisions or tweaking that the DREPs want to create. We could do another round of polling to confirm any of those final trade-offs. For example, if there are two very overlapping proposals, maybe the DREPs see that as both came above the line, and maybe they want to discuss and make a final decision. Do we want them both, or do we want to make a distinction between the two, as an example? So we will probably need some additional time to think and finalize as a community following the poll closing, but it's not final yet. We're working through that.
Okay, thanks, Danielle.
All right, Jack, we have a question from Philip in the chat at point 18 regarding stablecoin payouts, and we also have Nicholas' hands up.
Yeah, I'll quickly take the stable because Phil, just to carry on from Phil's question. Sorry, Nico, I'll get to you next. So yeah, we will. Yeah, Ricky Round, thank you. I was about to say the same thing. So we are having the smart contract to support both options. So there will be, for those that want a stablecoin payout, then that can be locked in. But maybe Ricky can help with any extra clarity there, if you can speak.
Maybe you can just quickly read the question so everyone knows what it is.
Sorry, I don't do that very well, do I? Is there support for stablecoin payouts if a proposal wants to be paid into JED or USDM or USD8? Is it possible? And Ricky did answer this in the chat, but if there's any more clarity, Ricky, that you can provide, then yeah, you're welcome to.
You pretty much said it, Jack. This is it's quite straightforward. Yes, there is support for this. It depends on the administrator. So in this case, if Intersect deem it to be the case, they will be able to use the current smart contracts to pay in. Certainly in USDM and USDA, I don't think there's the option for supporting JED at the moment.
No, JED wasn't considered in this round. It was USDA, USDM was the only ones that I'm aware of as we went through that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, and then Nicolas' hand is up, Jack, if you want to take.
Yeah. Go for it, Nico.
Nicolas, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a quick question, and it's about the legitimacy of the whole voting process, because I'm thinking about why the decision was made to only count participating stake when calculating if the approval threshold of greater than 50% has been met. I mean, it's already deviating from the on-chain way we do things, right? But then also, if we don't have a quorum for such an approach, I think it could potentially even damage the legitimacy of this budget info action that gets created. So I'm approaching it from that perspective, right? That if only a handful of DREPs participate that do not represent a lot of stake, and we get really quickly to a 50% threshold of the participating DREPs, yeah, it could be perceived as illegitimate in the on-chain process then that comes later, right? So yeah, that's just my question.
If I may, Nico, as Danielle just pointed out in the chat, there's over 2 billion ADA that's already participated in the Ecclesia tool. So if we were really having low participation, I would completely agree with you. We had deep concerns that if we didn't get the level of support we needed, we were saying the tool wasn't giving us the results we needed to make an info action, and we'd need to go back to the drawing board. But we do have over 2 billion ADA participating now, and we've got a whole week with it open. So let's see what the results get. This is looking really positive. We are getting a tremendous amount of support from the DREPs at this point.
Yeah, maybe I'll just add to that, Nico, because I think it's a good question, and this probably hasn't come out clear enough actually from the beginning of the changes here. That I've always seen this process that we're currently in as optional, right? If you're a DREP and you want to get involved and you want to help us build a budget info action so that it's got some level of consent baked into it, some level, right? It could be minimal, but it's better than maybe nothing, right? And then it gets on chain for where it actually needs to happen. Because I sort of sympathize with what you're saying, that if the threshold should mirror mainnet conditions, well, if that was the case, just put it as an info action straight away. Don't even forget this process. Let's go straight on chain, on mainnet, and honor the constitutional thresholds. But this process is just about getting some level of consent baked into it for those DREPs that want to participate. And so you have to draw a line in the sand somewhere. And the budget committee and you know that actually, because I know you participate in the budget committee, draw a line somewhere there, right? And that's where we are. And as Lloyd said, it's actually really, I'm very impressed with how much stakes involved. It's obviously half, right? So it's like you were being nitpicking, it's like half of the available active stake, right? Give or take. But that's pretty good. That's half a level of consent. I'm not finding my words correctly there, but you know what I mean? That makes it into a budget info action. And that's where it happens. You know, that if the community are happy with it as a budget info action, then it passes or it doesn't pass. And that's ultimately our conditions on mainnet.
Yeah, and Jack, let me just add, it's the speed, right? We're able to actually have these discussions, and DREPs can make the changes in the poll voting now. Unlike in the info action, we have to, they could make the changes over a 6-week period, but it would require a 6-week period of tying up ADA. This is rapid. We can make changes. We can have discussions. We can open new poll questions if we need to. So what I've been saying, and Nico, I know I've said this to you 100 times now, is that we need better ways for DREPs to collaborate. And this tool's a really cool way where we can collaborate. And this is kind of our first brush at trying it. So if it's easy and DREPs can all use it, then we actually have a tool where we can collaborate and ask questions of each other. And so this might be a step in the right direction. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe a follow-up question really quick. 2 follow-up questions. One would be, is there a point where you would say we will only include 80% of the net change limit, the current net change limit, in any info action that Intersect requests, because we do not want to have the whole net change limit consumed by Intersect or Intersect affiliates, whatever, right? And also, is there... Now wait, let's start there.
And that's actually where we were. That's where we landed, right, at the budget committee. You were there when we landed there. That's where we wanted to keep our recommendation, was no more than. And in fact, if that was like the really hitting the upper limits of the cap of where we wanted to go, leave room in the community for other things outside of whatever comes through the Intersect process, even though much of that is community driven, but also make sure there's lots of room for other community members to participate as well.
Yeah, I'd echo that. I don't really want to see the net change limits completely soaked up by this Intersect process. I don't think it's useful for the Cardano ecosystem as a whole. I'm saying that as an ADA holder. I don't really want to see that, to be honest. And maybe it's a budget committee decision, I think, to say that Intersect will agree on a 70% max, for example. We need to throw a number out there, but we can work on that. But yeah, I'm with you, Nico. I think, but in the Amaru example is exactly what I'm saying, and we should allow for opportunities, right? There's an opportunity cost if we soak up the net change limit in the process, and 3 months down the line, there's an amazing opportunity that we want to fund for 5 million ADA, and we all like it. Oh, we can't do it now, and we have to do a net change limit change, and then that's like another 4 weeks. And we shoot ourselves in the foot, I think, here. So yeah, I'd like to see a good buffer personally.
Yeah. And one thing I want to note, Nico, is we're striving for continuously getting better. Some of these things perhaps should have been done sooner. Some of these things, processes should have been worked out more robustly. We are where we are now. We are getting this feedback, and like Jack has pointed out, we have had a lot of really great participation from the D reps, and if we're given the chance to get through this year and continue on, it's going to continue to get better because we are learning a lot from this, and lessons are being noted, and the process will be iterated upon to become even better.
Okay. Nana, I see your question about the abstain vote has been answered in the chat. The abstain vote, for those of you who are on iPhone or having difficulties reading chat, the abstain vote has no effect on the threshold determination, right? And then that's the correct yes, so that's right. And I would suggest to look at, for Nick and Jack, to look at Philip's question at point 24. What is the socialization process for picking the supported stablecoins? How can Intersect members, DREPs, proposals express their desire for supporting other stablecoins?
Yeah, I agree. I think we should be really flexible here, right? If there's enough consensus for more coins to be added or more options to be added to the smart contract setup, then for sure. I mean, don't see any reason why not. And there might be some due diligence we need to do on liquidity and things like that. But yeah,
Jack, there was a minor thing. Pi said that like this was a kind of a future work stream that they could add all kinds of other support. They had a whole model that they could add where they could even do the liquidity across multiple dexes. It's way too being counter for me. I didn't follow it very well, but Pi was very excited about the way that they could actually spread it across all kinds of different means of getting liquidity for the for the tokens. So it's a good future work stream for how the smart contract can be matured in 26 and beyond.
Yeah, and I think just on that as well, it speaks to the other point around the treasury holding multiple different types of CNTs as a feature of the treasury, which we need to do a little hard fork for, I think, to make that true. But yeah, I mean, when we're doing a sweep back, for example, let's say there's a surplus at the end of 2025 of money that's not been spent out of the allocated budget amount, that should be swept back to the treasury. There may be a mix of assets in there that we need to account for, and we need to have a process there for that. But yeah, it's a good point. Anyway, Phil, you've got your hand up. Jump in.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. Real quick, this is extremely relevant to me because we have a large team, and yeah, managing, paying employees, etc., is very difficult through cryptocurrencies, especially given volatility. So often, like we would prefer to be paying out in stable coins, but historically, the issue we've had is slippage and low liquidity, and the ecosystem has made this sort of infeasible, right? Because yeah, when someone, it's fine if you're trading out like $500 of stable coins, but if it's your monthly salary, then the slippage is quite significant, and you might lose like 5 to 10% of your salary when selling it. So yeah, is there any mitigation for this? The main mitigation I would see is like direct redemption support through the issuers, right? Like if you have, one USDA or one USDM, and you're able to redeem it for one actual dollar via the issuer, like the USDM team, then this isn't a problem. But you need licenses for this, or you need to be sort of onboarded onto their platform. Is Intersect able to facilitate this onboarding for teams to make sure that teams that accept these payments are able to redeem through those providers?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Phil. I want to say a tentative yes. I need to have like the legal and finance heads to verify what I'm saying, but I think why not? That makes sense. Particularly with Moneta and stuff, is that the team, we know them, right? And we know the USDA team, of course. But yeah,
we we could easily, Jack, we could just follow up on that. That's an easy follow up with Jillian and also with the USDA team both. That's an easy follow up, and we can get back to Phil on that.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, there's a question from Chris, the very last one in the chat.
Oh yeah, got it. Thank you. I know this is a hot seat. I would like to see your plan in the near future for a new Intersect. What changes you plan to implement? For instance, how will you improve communication with DREPs, SBOs, community in the future? Yeah, so this is actually like a burning thing in my mind, Chris, because one of the problems, it's just the way we are right now, is we're so in the weeds of the very moment that we're doing what we're doing today, talking about budgets and trying to get that done. I want to release that pressure valve. I want to make sure Intersect can facilitate this as best as possible right now, given all of the crap that we're dealing with the process. If we can get something done, get this out of the way, I want to look to the future, and I can see Intersect being. I really want Intersect to be something the community are proud of, ultimately. And you want to be a proud member of Intersect and wear that badge with honor. We've got some way to go for that. And I am, though, highly encouraged by the people that have applied, candidates that have applied currently to our committee elections. And so with that new cohort that could make its way forward, I'm like really optimistic that Intersect is going to be in a strong place. I will be laying out a bit of a manifesto over the next sort of week or so, and we'll work with Nick on what an Intersect looks like from us. We've got a lot of legacy stuff over the next last 18 months, that we want to wash away. And that's a tactical, action-oriented plan over the next 2 or 3 weeks that we're going to be putting into place. We've got our next board meeting on Thursday, just for transparency, that Nick and I are presenting resource changes, strategic various differences of strategic views and where we were before and where we're moving towards. But I have my own strong vision of this, and essentially it does very much align to the cyberpunk ethos, and looking at Intersect being a supportive institution, not a controlling or centralized one. We've become that a bit too much, or at least the perception of becoming that, and that has to change. I also want to see multiple MPOs, multiple associations, collectives, institutions supporting this ecosystem. Frankly speaking, we're a top 10 chain, 25 billion market cap, depending on what time of day you look at it. We need multiple ones. Like if we want to really think big and become 100 billion market cap, $1 trillion market cap, Intersect should be one small piece of that puzzle. And so that's my long-term view with it all. But yes, I will be presenting a plan, Chris, over the next sort of week or two, just a sort of statement at least, and then a 10-point plan or something to that effect.
Great. Please keep your questions coming. If right now we have answered all the questions that have come up, so if there are no more questions, I would suggest we can go. We have lots of time. We have exhausted 1.5 hours of the 4 hours we have. And but it's also important to take breaks to refresh our brain. So if there are no more questions at the moment, and please, we still have some time, so you can always bring in questions, but I'll leave this over to Intersect. It's an open floor and an open time, so I just wanted to give this to you.
Thanks, Britta. So again, I'm going to ask a stupid question, which you've already said. If we take a break now, which maybe is a good thing to do, if everyone else agrees, take a 5-10 minute break. When we come back, we can come back to new questions. I'm fine for that. I could be here all night. Totally good. But is there like another? I mean, Andreas mentioned this as well. Are we doing a particular proposal section, or is this all Intersect? Are we dominating this call today?
And so the plan is for Intersect for this topic to use as much time as it needs until it's and then the rest of the time is allocated to budget conversations. Danielle has just put it in the chat again. And then there's one last question about how do reps want to see change requests, in a particular process. So that's the last block. So yeah, basically it's between Intersect and general budget conversations.
Okay. Well, let's take. I'll park that question if that's all right. We'll take a break now. I think everyone's got like 5 or 10 minutes. If we come back at 10 to the hour.
So yeah, I would suggest a 10-minute break. So let's take until, yeah, exactly 10 to the hour. Great. So we break now. I'm asking Katerina to pause the recording, and then I see you all in 10 minutes, and the team will meet in the green room. Also, whoever wants to join us in the green room, you're welcome from Intersect. And welcome back. Hello, everyone, and we can resume the recording. Welcome back. For those of you who left the meeting or are late, coming in late, please rename yourself. Just a reminder to rename yourself so we know who's in the room. And with that, I'm seeing lots of DREPs, which is fantastic. Yes, so please continue to bring in your questions either by raising hands or raising questions in the chat. We're still in the Intersect administration part, which Nick represented earlier. Yeah, so if you have any questions.
The other thing I wanted to mention, Britta, as well, is that I'm happy to sort of take a bit of a therapy session on this with like what is Intersect, how can we improve as Intersect. Now, I know a lot of things that we can do better, so I'll be working on that from now on. But if there's anything particularly that people want us to change, then please do. Yeah, we can use this session as a feedback loop here. You know, Nick and I are right here now to take this on.
Yes, thank you, Jack, for that. So yeah, I'm asking the audience, I hope you've heard what Jack just said. He's inviting you for any feedback that you may have. As they are both here, Nick and Jack, now to answer your questions. And I'm just scrolling back through the chat and see if we have overseen anything. I think Chris' question has been answered, if I'm not wrong, yeah?
Yeah. I think I think Nick mentioned this before I joined around Intersect's, I guess, ask again, just to say that our ask is 20-minute ADA. We're obviously reviewing all the feedback that's happening there, and that's based on a 50-cent valuation. As I mentioned, it's unlikely that full amount will be utilized given the current exchange rate of ADA at the moment, and that will be determined at point of disbursement. There is some really interesting stuff that I'd love feedback on, and we can work on this with the smart contract developers on the framework around disbursements and oversight. There is this concept of a Treasury Oversight Board. I think it was previously called committee, but I'd like to not call it a committee. I think it confuses things with Intersect committees. Calling it maybe a board or something to that effect that separates it out from being connected directly to Intersect. And there'll be members of this oversight board that will be reviewing, essentially doing audits of the work that's happening, but really with a stop payment function. So it's not necessarily to approve payment, because that's already been done on chain. It's more a case of if a vendor runs away, we can stop a payment based on a recommendation from Intersect, but it could also be a recommendation from an auditor outside of Intersect as well, based on what they're seeing. And this oversight board, the members of it is still to be determined, if I'm not mistaken. We haven't agreed on, and I've been away for a little bit for the last week. It feels like I've been away for a month. So Ricky, maybe you could help clarify if we have identified partners of that board. I think one of the roles, I think we're going to do sort of a 5 multi-sig. I'm speaking really basically here, sort of a 5 multi-sig site board for the smart contract framework. And one of those roles, I would like to be directly part of the community. So, for example, you could have the CF. I'm seeing Andreas in the call, so I'm throwing him under the bus here. The CF could play a role on this oversight board as an organization. Intersect should do too. Obviously, as an administrator of contracts, we should be one of those signers, not the controller, but a signer with 4 others. We could have organizations like Pragma, Zerberus, an auditor, for example. But there's sort of another idea that I think I don't want it to be necessarily an institutional setup in its entirety, because I feel like the community then have less access, if you like, to being able to be part of that group, apart from via Intersect. It's not quite clean in the way I'm saying it, but I would love to see a sort of DAO structure for one of those signers on the oversight board, where the community can directly sort of work with the signers and approve that, similar to how we have the ICC today. Anyway, open to thoughts. Ricky, apologies if I'm jumping on there, that I'm speaking out of turn here, but if there's anything that I've said that sounds weird, please do correct me. But yeah, that's where my head's at with it.
Yeah, nothing you said there was weird or out of order. There is definitely no decision made yet about who of the N of M signatures who will play those parts. All are possible, that's for sure. And I think with the idea is that it's just a representative group that will not be overly swayed by one of the partners. It was that's the overriding intent. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah, sounds good. I think I guess where my head's at with it is that, let's say we approve a 250 million ADA budget. Fantastic. It gets withdrawn into this Treasury Reserve contract, and then we have this oversight board that are being part of the stop payment, like sort of check and balance here with auditing, I guess, of milestone payments and other payments. It's then sort of away from the DREP world now. So we've got this large pot of money potentially that's sitting in this reserve contract that has less, I'm saying less in again using the wrong language, less community oversight from, at least from an on-chain perspective, because we've now had that approved, it's moved over, and then now what happens? I think I'd like to leverage the community again in this setup, so that in a clear way, not just through Intersect. I think that could be, again, a bit hierarchical and not the way I want to move forward. So yeah, I guess it's an open call out, because it's not Intersect shouldn't be setting up a DAO. The community would need to self-organize here and be one of those signers. And so I'm just throwing that idea out for the group, and if there's any feedback on how that could look and feel, definitely open to it. Or to be like completely shot away and say, no, Jack, that's a rubbish idea.
There's definitely an element of this, not the smart contract itself, but the off-chain part, which we're currently in the process of helping to form the PRD for, the product requirements definition, is an open tool that anybody, DREPs, anyone from the community who's interested can go in, take a look, and they can see exactly which vendor, all the projects that are out there, exactly how many of the milestones have been drawn down, if any of them are blocked, the reason for it. The idea is that each vendor will submit information on prior to the milestone date being up, giving enough time for the technical auditors to go in and make sure that what they say they have delivered, that they have actually delivered. And if they haven't actually delivered it, then there would be a temporary pause on that milestone to give the vendor the opportunity to rectify whatever the issue is, and as soon as it's rectified, then it would then be unpaused, and then they'd be able to carry on. So all of this information will be completely transparent and shown in this tool that that Zerberus is expected to deliver for the community. Yeah, and so it's totally open. There'll be a slightly different version of that for the administrators. Of course, they need to have access to information that is slightly more private than that open stuff. But so there'll be generally the public will not be able to get to see everything, but they'll be able to get to see everything that they really would like to see, apart from names and addresses and specifics of the contracts, the legal binding contracts that will be between Intersect and the vendors, which of course will have to be in place. I think you alluded to that earlier.
CDH and the vendors, CDH and the vendors, not Intersect, right? Jack?
Yeah, that's correct. So let's talk about that, Lloyd, actually. Just quickly, a side note here. The CDH is called Cardano Development Holdings. It's an entity set up in the Cayman Islands. Many of you have seen this already. It's been existing at the same time that Intersect was incorporated. And it's essentially a vehicle for being able to have a legal route to and a liability protections against Intersect for any sort of nefarious government that wants to come down on me, for example. So we've got a sort of an ability to have a structure where there's a liability sort of ring fence around that. So CDH is a vehicle in the Cayman Islands that Intersect is the sole administrator of, and contracts will be with CDH that Intersect administer on the CDH's behalf. And that's the current setup. So contracts will be related to the Cardano Development Holdings, with Intersect administrating it. And so, Ricky, a question for you. Sorry to put you on the spot again. The smart contract itself, and this is again me asking an open question to the group here. The smart contract itself is not going to be housed under a particular entity. It's going to be a decentralized. No. Okay, great. That's exactly what I hope for.
It could be the way that Pi has structured it. There's the source is open. The code is open source. It can be essentially compiled with various entities involved. That means the signers and the recipient, the vendor. So they come together and will agree to the terms of the contract with all the milestones and so forth. They have to all agree, right? So there is a vendor signature that goes in along with the N of M administrator signatures, so that it's all open. Everyone's agreed on all the terms, conditions. It's all there on chain, and then that gets as soon as that's on chain, that kicks off the process. And when the time comes up, which will be simple time elements for the milestones, that vendor then gets to take that funds out of the system at that time, so long as it hasn't been paused by an auditor. They will be able to do that. So in all normal situations where people are doing what they're supposed to be doing when they're supposed to be doing it, that'll be it. The contract will be in place, the smart contract will be in place, and then the vendors will be able to draw down on it as long as they deliver on their promises, right? So the only involvement of the administrator and the auditor is when things are not being delivered as per they should.
Yeah, and that's essentially what Intersect is as part of our administration role, is to be that counterparty, so that if we need to, in the worst case scenario, hopefully it doesn't happen, if we need to go down legal routes for arbitration, we have the ability to protect the assets within the smart contract if required.
It's not only that though, is it? Because not every project goes the way expected, right? So someone might put forward a proposal and it turns out to be rather difficult or possibly even impossible. Now, they might have been a third of the way through before you find that hopefully the contracts are structured so that you have an early milestone that gets rid of the hard problems earlier, so that you don't pay for a whole bunch of setup and then find out, well, actually that's a problem. So that's where the expertise of the TSC and so forth, and the technical auditors who create this whole process, that's where their expertise comes in agreeing on these milestones. But again, the vendor agrees to all of them in advance, right? So that means it's all transparent, but it still can happen. And in which case, together, the vendor and the administrators might say, look, this is obviously not going to work. We've come to a dead end here. We'll need to restructure this contract. And together they can decide to do that according to the terms of the smart contract as it's been produced. Okay. And that would essentially void that contract and then potentially replace it with another one, which was in line with whatever the new understanding is. So there's a huge amount of flexibility in there, actually. I think Kevin asked a question earlier, like, well, if that could happen, but what happens if there's more expense that goes with that? And I think that is possibly one area we haven't really covered yet in terms of figuring out how things go. Like, so we thought it was going to cost $100,000. We figured out, actually, we got $20,000 into the contract. We found there was a problem. We need to restructure it. Now it's going to cost $120,000. Where's the extra funds going to come from, right? We want to do it. We can do it. And that's an issue which I don't believe has been addressed at this moment.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I mean, my initial reaction is that we ask DREPs again, do you approve more money? That's the simplest way of doing it and the cleanest, fairest way, but it's also not necessarily the fastest way. So there's concerns there, and especially if work's already started, then you have to pause work and you have to go through the whole on chain and risk a bit of sunk cost, for example, if it's not approved. Yeah, good question, Rick. Anyway, Kevin, you got your hand up. Sorry, jump in.
Yeah, I was just going to say the concern is if it's some piece of critical work that has to be done done, Jack, is especially if there's a short-term need for it. So then you might not have there might not be the time to go back and raise full budget action for that new work item. And obviously, if you're transferring the funds to a central source, and central source is then controlling them, it's relatively easy to issue new contracts. But if everything is going through these smart contracts, you do lose some flexibility in redeployment. One of the an example last year was that Tweag took on some additional work to do with the Ouroboros Genesis contract. When they put the original contract in, they'd agreed a fixed scope. As the contract was progressing, we discovered an issue that they hadn't anticipated, which would have meant that the Genesis work couldn't be completed and integrated. So then you certainly would need, in that case, to go back and ask for more funding just to complete the work, and that would certainly take some time to sort out.
I would, if I may say, the proposal that we've put in, we have several projects, okay, 18 projects, I think it is in total. I think our expectation is that you can't judge everything perfectly. Some will be slightly under budget, some will be perhaps slightly over budget. We can take a view, because we are putting all these proposals forward, and we can take a view that one might go over, one might go under, and we can even it out. Now, that is obviously not possible for someone who just has a single contract, a single project. So for some people, it's difficult. For us, it's not so difficult, and we can take a view on it as one of the major suppliers. Not easy for the smaller guys.
Okay. Yeah, understood. I think we need to work that one through. And this is how I see the treasury withdrawal actions, sort of at least the stipulate the process and the clarity on the governance protocol around smart contract and disbursements, having that really clearly documented. I know we've got a Pi video, and I know Cerberus and others are working on documentation to explain this more, but we've got, the sort of next 4 weeks to really make this clear, so that when we do the treasury withdrawal, that's at least visible and there for people. Yeah, let's definitely take that one away and see if we can make a plan. Okay. I'm pretty unconscious because I want to respect time. We've not respected people's time that well, actually, in general, in this process. And I don't want to have this open the next 2 hours and not doing anything that's meaningful here for people. So if there is if I can help, I don't want to sort of just talk, because I can go on a monologue and I don't want to do that. Yeah, go on, Britta, hand up to you.
No, so I just want to, so maybe we give Jack some time to go through the chat. So I'm going to point out a few things. Some have been answered for you to choose what needs addressing. So Max van Rosen had a bit of feedback regarding scope, which was answered by Lloyd. Then there were some comments from Andreas. And I like that how, to the audience, please keep topics and questions labeled so that we can pick them up. Then there was some note from Daniel for the audience, and I see a question from Kevin regarding failed vendors, which was answered by Lloyd. And then towards the end, there's something from John Kelly, which seems to be a comment. Oh, there's a topic from Mark, the last one. And
yeah, maybe I'll just...
Yeah, this may be, and he's a DREP, so this may be of concern. Just read out if you want me to read it out, it's fine. Otherwise, we can also call Mark out to the floor.
Yeah, I'm happy to read it and happy to chat to Mark as well. So yeah, let's go to his question then. Considering Intersect role moving forward, it will be good to see Intersect lead, knowing the community's requirements for tools and governance and tooling, identify what those are, and encourage collaboration, open tendering, building, community workshops for input, for example. So yeah, I completely agree. Actually, it's one of the things that Nick and I spoke about this morning, actually, which is the community know how to build tools. That's will stop. We've seen that evidence multiple times in multiple different domains, multiple different areas. So it's time to leverage that at a much greater extent than we have been doing. I mean, to be fair, we have done that a lot. There's been really good builders. Lido Nation, for example, has done some fantastic work as part of the governance tooling group, but we can do more. So that's definitely how I want to see it moving forward. I don't want Intersect to build things ourselves. We don't need to, frankly. And the community are very economic when it comes to and are good, frankly speaking. So yeah, Nick, I don't know if you want to say anything else to that.
Yeah, I think, throughout this whole process, we've seen in recent weeks the amount of people that have leveraged the GovTool APIs to generate their own tools or their own versions of tooling to support this process has been pretty immense and great to see. And I think, Jack and I both have a very strong vision on this, that we should be building on that. As Jack said, we don't need to be developing things ourselves at all, even though GovTool is a community-driven and built tool. Moving forward, I think some of the changes that we want to make is to leverage the community way more for building tools, way more, actually. We just need to basically work out an internal process for how we facilitate that. Maybe we write a spec and we put that out to the community, or we have agreements or with certain areas that certain community members or community organizations will work on certain projects. But certainly there is a willingness and a want from us to push that agenda very hard. And that's something we're pretty passionate about, to be honest.
Yeah, that's great. Mark here. So thanks for answering that question. Yeah, it's just we keep seeing a lot of waste, not through like intentional or any by design or anything, but like, someone will build a voting tool, someone else builds a voting tool, and then Intersect specs out a voting tool for the upcoming CC elections, and they've all got crossover. So hopefully Intersect can take a bit more of a lead on just the identifying the requirement stage, and then exactly leverage the community that are already busting it out. So thanks.
No, it's good. It's a good question, Mark. And actually, like I said, I think we just need to kind of work out what a process looks like for gathering all those requirements together and then funneling them through a process whereby, one set of people do one set of things, and then that way we get a huge amount of tools all doing different things rather than a massive variation on the same thing, like you say. So certainly there's a push from us to externalize the development of governance tools and tooling around Intersect and the community, for sure.
Yeah, and there's been a question actually from Ken Eric. I'll read this one out, Richard, if that's all right. So why is the Intersect proposal for 10 million USD for the full year of 2025 when Intersect is already funded for most of the year? Can this be a reason why you get voted down? That's a good question. So maybe just on the funding side of things, our runway is roughly until August. So without Treasury funding, to be frank, we will be not around post August. We'll have to be doing I don't even want to think about what we need to do if that's the case, but we will obviously think about it if we need to. The question around funding then really is that obviously will cover us until by August. It means that we get August next year, right? 2026. Now there's I guess a sort of more of an operational reason. We do have headcount. I think this was a bit to Phil's point here with salaries and being able to wind down operations if required. But I would counter, so yes, it does go to August next year, but I would counter that a little bit to say that we will be asking for our funding in milestones and sort of disbursements quarterly basis rather than it being all up front. So for example, if we are able to, depends on how the ecosystem can mobilize for a 2026 budget. I don't want to get too in the weeds here a little bit, but let's say we are really good with the 2026 budget, which I hope we are, and we're able to approve that in place for January 1st. So it's a clean year next year for a budget process, which would be nice, if possible. It could be that when we ask our 2026 ask, it will be reflective of what we already have to August, or what the leftover for August is swept back to the Treasury because it's not been dispersed. So it's not going to be double spent in that respect. And it's obviously going to be open for the community to know that anyway. It's not like we can hide it. We're also a not-for-profit. I think it's going to be super clear. I can't run away with that money. Nick can't run away with the money. The money has to be invested into the member services and what we are as an MBO, or it's taken back into the Treasury. So yeah, it's a good question. But yeah, as I said, funding is limited for us right now, and this is why we're doing it. And I think maybe one other point to this, which is a slight tangent, in why we're asking for money in the first place. There are lots of open source foundations and MBOs that don't rely on public money, but they are beholden to corporate interest. And that's the difference we're dealing with here. But the Linux Foundation will charge $100,000 for an annual membership. We're not in a position as a Cardano ecosystem, and I'm speaking frankly, to charge enterprise members $100,000 a year to sign up at any great number or any great scale. And then even if we were, which maybe we are in 2 or 3 years, what then is Intersect looking like? We then maybe have 30 or 40 large enterprises funding Intersect for their own self-interest, and individual members that where we charge $10 become a lot less relevant. And it's not something that I want to see for Intersect personally, but I do take the point very clearly that we should have other revenue streams and not be solely reliant on treasury funding. And I think there's definitely more of a 3 to 5 year plan on how we're able to, because it's not just necessarily about corporate memberships, right? We could do events. We can be able to have other revenue streams that we can work towards building a bit more of a sustainable model so that we're asking a lot less from the treasury in the years to come. That would definitely be my aim. But I'm really keen on making sure our ethos of what Intersect is trying to be, which is that level playing field, one member, one vote, $10 to join. You can have your voice heard on committees. And I've met people on committees that I haven't met before Intersect. And that may be on me, not on those individuals. But we've raised people into committees that are now sitting alongside the founding entities as members, voting members of those committees, and really having an equal voice there as a one member, one vote. And so I think that's something really lovely about what Intersect has achieved. For all its faults with the budget process, there's been a lot of fantastic stuff that has happened. So anyway, I feel like this is my honest take of where we are right now as an ecosystem. I want Intersect to be accessible and inclusive. As a result of that, we are dependent on public funding. In 3 or 4 years' time, who knows? I hope the balance is very different and we have a bit of a mix there. That's my long-term view on that. I need to document that better out, and that's sort of to Chris's point. What is the long-term future for Intersect? I'm only the interim ED, by the way. I'm not here. I'm not appointed permanently to this position. I will lay out my stall for the next sort of 2 or 3 years, because I do think we should look forward. And the board are working on a executive director plan now, and that'll be again a community focus and participation. So they'll be joining that search, and how they interact with selecting that final person to lead Intersect in the future will be open for members. But I can't preempt that. What the board are going to work on that, and Nick and I are going to work with them to see how that process can play out, and we're coming up with some ideas in the next week or two. But yeah, it's very much in motion there. Anyway, sorry, a slight tangent to your question, Ken, Eric, but I just thought I'd mention that.
Thank you. Nick, did you want to add something? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask Britta, since we have a really great captive audience here, and we've got a lot of D-reps here who are going to be voting one way or the other, is it possible we can ask them the question and throw it back on some of the people here will have either not be in a position or feel that they're in a position to vote on the Intersect proposal as yet, or may have voted the proposal down. So it'd be great to get some feedback and questions for them as to either why that is or what they need to see to be able to vote in a positive light on the Intersect proposal. And I think that feedback for us would be really, really critical and really important, because there might be some things that we can dispel very quickly, or some things that we can go away and alter so it's really clear, or a little clearer in some of the parts of the proposal that we've actually submitted that address some of those things.
Sure. I'm going to repeat your question in a minute. I'm just going to point you out to Danielle's, and maybe you can answer that in the chat, because it's a simple question. So is it correct that you are actually asking for funding for more than a year, June to August?
Sorry, I should be clear. It is it's a 12-month ask. We have a small buffer right now to take us to August, and that's just good operational practice, to be frank. With the cliff edges here, for everybody in the ecosystem. I mean, Intersect, we're lucky we've had funding, and I have a job and I'm paid. And many of the ecosystem that don't have that, and we're trying to unlock now. But cliff edges currently in the budget process are not, I don't think, really good for anyone, to be honest. And it's much better to have certainty with funding into the future, with at least a decent buffer for organizations to make sunset plans, and if required. So yeah, it is June to June, to be clear.
Thanks, Jack. And now back to Nick. Maybe I'm calling out for all D-reps to listen to Nick's question that he's having to especially the D-reps that can help further clarify. So please, if you can I'd prefer if it comes from you, Nick, in original O-tone, so I don't put in my, my English or my accent. So please keep it coming so it comes from you.
No problem, thank you. I guess the question from myself and Jack is that some of you as D-reps won't have voted yet, and so either you need you need something from us in terms of clarification or some specific information on specific topics to cast a positive vote for Intersect. Some of you might have already voted against our Intersect proposal, and it'd be great to understand why that was and what the things that tipped you over that threshold into voting no rather than yes, because there's still time for us to take feedback, change our proposal to make sure that everything is really clear for people, that where it either might not be, or on certain points where you might have voted against Intersect's proposal.
Great. So please, D-reps, bring in your thoughts in regards of next questions, why you have voted, how you voted, and what holds you back. And I'm giving you a bit of time. Sometimes take some time to think through. So silence is an awkward place, I know, but it's when the brain works best. Jan-Erik, please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I had to move location, so I'm in the car, so I have to be on the hands-free. I'm sorry for that. So in regards to Intersect, as a D-rep, because of all what's happening the last, let's say, 6 months, and a lot of different controversies going on, I understand, at least from a D-rep point of view, even though I voted yes for you, that there is a lot of, let's say, bad blood in the community at the current moment. I'm aware that you guys are a non-profit organization. Perhaps emphasize that and communicate that a little bit better. Secondly, in regards to transparency and financially transactions, and I don't want to put Chris in the budget committee on the spot here, but there is a solution for that. We have on-chain accounting, MiCA compliant transactions, and auditing by big renewable firms. I think utilizing those sort of things will gain a lot of trust. And then secondly, less bureaucracy. That is my feedback to you guys in the management at Intersect.
Go ahead, Nick. Thank you, Jan-Erik. Thank you for your thoughts. Good input, I believe.
It's really useful input. Thank you for that.
Yeah, great. Thanks. And we have another one up here that is Nicholas.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll get straight to the point. One of the things that has changed is the smart contract setup, right? The potential smart contract setup. And one thing that I noticed versus the initial budget that was shared in the Cardano forum alongside the different committee budgets as well is that the costs budgeted for overseeing the Cardano so the CDH, they have not changed, even though we are now, we're now working within this new framework of the smart contract. So my question is, even though we have now this new setup with the smart contracts, why does it cost the same for the CDH to manage the budgets?
It's a good question, and I'm not sure I have the complete answer to that. I suspect Lloyd will probably have a better grasp on that, but otherwise I do have some thoughts.
I can jump in quickly as well, Nick.
Yeah.
Nick, it is a good question. So smart contract does obviously streamline things, but not everything. There's a lot of contract work that is off-chain, the standard Web 2, for lack of a better term, way of building out contract, getting people to sign that, doing that all as an institution to another institution as a counterparty work. Now I think, and Nick and I spoke about this morning, we did, I think, Intersect managed about 90 or so contracts last year. for various different things, not all related to sort of classic administration. I think there was about 20 or so contracts based on Cardano continuity that was true for. But what we're potentially looking at here, Nico, is double that for the new process and differences in the oversight. So whilst we did about 90 contracts or so last year, the oversight of those contracts was much lighter. Not necessarily for the continuity, to be fair, but for other types of contracts we did. So it's a scaling thing. There is a resource thing here as well. There's going to be need to have a bit more of a, I guess, increase in legal opportunity and costs to deal with any issues we may have. So yeah, I guess Nick, it's sort of that really. There isn't actually a huge amount of increase from. We spent $7 million last year asking for up to $10 million. Well, $10 million based on the 50% ADA rate to cover that gap. There's also within that $10 million an allocation for committee stipend. So it's something that we've been banging on about for a long time, and the IFC and lots of committee members have been sort of looking at how could we fairly compensate people's time for working in committees, those that opt for it. And I know there'll be some institutional committee members that may think, well, I don't need to, I'm already paid to sort of be here, so I'm not going to claim that. But nevertheless, that's maybe an optional thing. But I'm solutionizing a little bit here. The point is that there'll be there's a $500,000 allocation within our $10 million to be able to compensate committee members throughout the year for their efforts. It's not going to be anything significant because, frankly, I don't think people should be getting rich off this, but it should definitely be a fair compensation of people's time and experience. We want great people to be members of committees at Intersect because we want great expertise and skills. And frankly, that we should. I do like the idea of rewarding committees. I think we've relied so heavily on volunteers last year and currently now. I don't think it's sustainable, nor is it fair, especially when things are going not well. And you're like, well, who do I point the finger at? This is shit, and I'm not being paid to be here. And so I think there's a, it goes both ways is what I'm trying to say here. So that's why there is an increase from last year's costs to this year's. It's scaling our contract work, and there's also an allocation for committee stipends.
Just to add to that as well, in regards to the management of CDH, there's also a fixed set of costs of actually maintaining that organisation on an annualised basis in terms of the director and the costs of the actual organisation as the CDH itself out of the Cayman Islands.
The costs for the custodial platform that handles all of the fiat conversions that have to be done for all the vendors that must receive fiat, which are many and varied. There's a whole fixed cost there. That cost, so that we all are aware, that cost could have been covered by staking the ADA from the withdrawal, but since we aren't able to stake the ADA, we have to pay those costs. So that cost is also covered in this. So there's so many things that are covered by this $10 million ask that are related to just being able to operate the way that we need to operate for the community.
Yeah, thanks, Lloyd. And I would actually add that we are part of our action plan over the next sort of 6 to 9 weeks that Nick and I are looking at is to become more efficient already, right? So we spent $7 million, but could we actually have spent 5, 6? And so let's look at those efficiencies. There's already a few very easy ones that we could do, which we will be doing. I don't want to preempt those now on the call because day one, I just got back from holiday last night. So Nick and I will be doing that. We need to get board approval on those changes, but they'll be coming forward very quickly. So yeah, it's sort of there's a lot of mix here, but the biggest point, I guess Ken Eric mentioned this as well, is that we are not for profit. Surplus gets swept back into the treasury, or it's reutilized for membership benefit based on whatever's within the approved DREP understanding and perspectives. Yeah.
Right, thank you. And Nick, I don't know if you've seen it. There has been, to your question regarding feedback, Max van Rosen at point 53 has had some feedback, which was actually answered by Jack regarding scope. And then there was feedback from Juan Sierra, who I know is an independent DREP as well, at 9:27 or at 27 my time, at point 27. So you might want to just go through that. And yeah, inviting more DREPs to input regarding Nick's question on Mark Hall, also just put in a note.
Yeah, I can take a couple of these. So, okay, yeah, thanks, Juan. Appreciate everything you do as well. Worked with you for a while now on the Intersect Council and various other things. Yeah, I mean, right now the communities do have direct decision making on
Please read
GovTools.
that first. Sorry,
Oh,
please read
sorry.
it. It's okay. It's okay. That's why I'm here.
I'm sorry. Forgive me. All right, so I won't read the nice bit. I like the idea of a DAO, and in that line of thought, will the community have direction, decision-making authority over the roadmap and maintenance priorities of GovTools? So yes, 100%. Ideally, all GovTools is completely open source now as it is, and all the framework there. I think over the next sort of 3 to 6 months, again, as part of our action plan, is to make sure that is fully open to the community to be able to do whatever they need to do and apply for funding to maybe build those out, create new APIs, whatever it may be. So yeah, that's a quite an easy answer actually. It's to say yes. And we do have a governance working group now that take direction from the community on what features that should be developed for the different components of GovTool. And then I'll take Mark's question as well. I'll read it out. Aligning Intersect with committees and their output, it's not very clear how much the various committees guide or input the direction of Intersect. DREPs I speak to see it as a community input, committee process, and then Intersect implement it, making this clearer to the community would bring support. Yeah, thank you, Mark. Noted on that. And there's some really good examples actually that we should leverage more of. You know, the product committee did, I think, a great job in presenting a roadmap on chain. So the committee came up with the vision of Cardano for 2025 from a product perspective. That's pretty impactful stuff for me. That is the influence you can have as a member of Intersect. Then that goes on chain as an info action that's been approved. And then we've been building a budget around that product roadmap, at least at the core tech level around that roadmap. Another good example is the Hard Fork Working Group that facilitated both upgrades from the first time, really, from a community perspective that we facilitated two major upgrades to Cardano with Chang and Plomin, was run by a facilitation working group out of the TSC with 50 plus participants in both of those that working group across those two upgrades. Again, making sure the ecosystem is ready, helping dApps and SBOs and everything downstream, wallets, DB Sync, everything like that work and be ready for those upgrades. So yeah, there's some really good nuggets of what committees have done and how they've influenced the future. And I think it can only get better because we've got some really good examples to build off from. But we do need to make it clearer. So yeah, noted, and we'll work on that.
Great. And Nana has his hand up, Jack.
Yes, Nana, go for it.
Yeah, thank you, Breda. Thank you, Jack. So just a couple of questions I would like to ask. I am a DREP, even though I have voted yes for Intersect proposal. But then there are a couple of questions that I think, if answered, probably will help other DREPs to also make their decision. So for instance, in the proposal, if you look at the key deliverables, Q1, the items in the Q1, most of them have been achieved already. Yet they have been listed in the proposal. Does that mean that the proposal itself, the budget, is going to cover, cover the cost for these initiatives that were, implemented? So a typical example, for instance, would be the Teams event in Tokyo, which happened just recently, right? Obviously, it is costly. So there are costs involved over there, or expenditure involved over there. Is the budget that you're asking for, if approved, going to cover for part of those? And if that is the case, are we also our DREPs to believe that the Intersect budget in itself is actually covering expenses from January 2025 to December 2025, or which other way is it? And then also the current election that is about to unfold, the board elections and stuff. How would DREPs be assured or feel positive that the current roadmap that is being proposed in the budget that has been submitted, is something that is in line with what the next elections outcome is going to probably prefer?
Yeah, they're good questions. Okay, first one. There is no retrospective funding, so the Intersect ask today is not to back pay anything previously. It's to fund from June onwards. So I think you may be referring to the 2024 report where Teams was included in that. I don't recall that we've listed a specific event in our 2025 budget ask, because I definitely haven't worked on that. Nick, maybe you can clarify. We could look at it to double check. No, so we'll double check. But it's not retrospective funding, so it's from June onwards. Nothing's going to be backdated previous to that from funding perspective. And then your question on new committee members coming in, that's a really good one. I think we've got an opportunity now to reset a little bit of what committees do and don't do at Intersect. And I want to take some of the best examples of what we've seen from committees, excuse me, and also acknowledge the different roles committees play. We have like the open source committee, we have the TSC, we have product, we have marketing, very different domains that do connect somewhere along the journey of Cardano together, but it's not necessarily particularly clear. And we have a brand new cohort of members, as I said, coming in, as you mentioned, which pretty much make all of our committees, fully elected committees, which would be the first time that, apart from the growth and marketing committee, will be 50% elected because they're a new committee. All of the other committees will be fully elected members in there. So this is a great opportunity to make sure that members of committees are actually proud, want to work on what they want to work on. Like, it's not for me to tell them what to work on, but we should definitely understand of what Intersect's role is in the ecosystem. And I think this comes back to the point about Intersect doing too much, being maybe a feeling like a centralization point. Ultimately, Intersect provides non-binding recommendations to the community to help them make decisions on chain where relevant, so that ultimately we have better outcomes on chain. That's the general promise of Intersect. There are differences though with, for example, the open source and technical steering committees, because there's an implementation piece of work that happens, particularly on upgrades and some of the technical features that go into our repos that we manage. And this is another thing actually we don't talk enough about. I think to Ken Oak's point about talking about not for profit, we don't talk about that we steward over 100 repos at Intersect, and 40 plus, maybe even 50 plus of the core Cardano node repos from the Haskell perspective are stewarded by Intersect GitHub under the auspices of the Open Source Committee and the Technical Steering Committee. So there's a massive piece of sort of value there, right? Asset, if you like, in an open way. Anyway, yeah, I've gone on a tangent, but yeah, I agree with you. We need to work. They're coming in to a pre-existing process. The new cohort will be confirmed May 7th. I think we're closing the elections. A few days later, they'll be announced, and then there'll be the reason why we did 50% as well is, I guess, fairly obvious, but it's to have that continuity, right? So we can have the handovers, and we're not losing momentum. It's not a brand new committee coming in like we do with our politics. We have a brand new set of elected officials come in, and things change again, or in fact, actually, they don't change, do they? To be honest, the same stuff. But with Intersect, we want to have that sort of momentum rolling. So it's a good question. I don't think we've solved it fully. We'll be looking to reset a little bit about what Intersect does and doesn't do over the next couple of weeks. We're creating onboarding kits for our new members coming in. They'll also go to existing members, of course, as well. And yeah, we've got a great opportunity to do that. And I think the other thing that Nick and I spoke about this morning again was really being stronger in our administration support. I want committees to not necessarily have to do the boring work. And when I say about boring, that's minutes, that's recordings, that's some of the comms that go out, that's setting up scheduling, that stuff, right? Sorry, Lloyd, I know you do the boring work of the budget committee, but we want to get stronger at doing that. And we're doing that fairly well too. I'm not being unfair to our team, actually. We do that quite well already, but I think we can get stronger there. Anyway, I'll pause. Sorry, then I've gone on a tangent, but hopefully that helped clarify some things.
Thank you so much, Jack. Sorry, what's that now?
Yeah,
no,
sorry, Britt. I just wanted to add a follow up. So, if you look at the proposal, right, even on the voting tool, Q1 deliverables and I mean the key deliverables that are to be preferred by this particular proposal. Q1 deliverables and Q2 deliverables are more like what Intersect is doing already or have done, like earlier, right? And then it looks like Q3 deliverables and Q4 deliverables are what is to be done, going forward. And I'm supposing that will be from somewhere June, July. So if we are not backtracking in terms of payments, then those ones that have been listed as key deliverables for this particular proposal that DREPs are voting on right now, how do they impact the proposal? And I've listed a couple of them on the chat as well, if you want to have a look.
Yeah, thank you. I've just liked your message in the chat. Thank you. Nick, we'll take that one away. We need to polish that one up because that's not fair. It's not actually reflecting what we need to be doing.
Because for me, sorry, Jack. Because for me, I think that is what is also sort of preventing other dealers from confidently voting yes, because then they have the sense that you guys are going to backtrack in terms of payment and then pay for all of these things that you have already, covered costs for. And if it can be clarified clearly, I think it will help the other dealers to change their minds in terms of their stance with the voting. Thank you very much for taking it up.
Thank you. Very good point. And we'll take that away immediately, actually, Nick. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nick and Jack. I hope you've gotten some more clarity on DREP feedback with the questions just raised and answered by you. And if there are no more questions from DREP, we're a bit short of 1.5 hours left. I would suggest we move to the next topic, which is budget conversations. And then the question about how DREPs would like to handle change requests. If you're in agreement, Jack and Nick, we move on to the next topic. All right.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
All right, fantastic. So I will now open the floor, and unless someone is in urgent need of a break, great discussions. I'm happy to hear this going very smooth and not taking too much time. I would like to ask my co-facilitator, Katerina, to take on the next topic for budget conversations. Thank you.
Thanks, Britta. Great discussion, everyone. And so as we dive in to think about proposals writ large across the board, I would like to first ask any vendors in the room to just add your proposal's name into the chat, because if in our conversation, DREPs have specific questions for vendors around their proposals, we just want to make sure that DREPs know which proposal writers are in the room, because we had that happen across the last couple of workshops. Is sometimes a specific question would come up and no one was there to answer it. So I'll give vendors just a brief minute to just drop your proposal name in chat so that DREPs are aware of which proposal vendors are here. And while that happens, we're just going to also name a brief shift. So for the first 2 sessions, we've had only DREPs raising issues, only DREPs seconding issues, and then those seconded issues get brought to the conversation, right, where we have folks introduce it for 2 minutes and then 5 minutes of discussion. We're switching just one bit, which is the first step, which is anyone can raise an issue, but it has to be seconded by a DREP in order to be brought forward for discussion, right? So I'm just going to repeat that. Anyone can raise an issue. Only DREPs can second an issue using the green checkmark emoji reaction in chat so that our team can keep track of seconded issues. And then, as usual, the person who raised the issue that's been seconded will give you 2 minutes to expand on what you want to raise or talk about. And then we'll open it up for 5 minutes of discussion for the whole group. And so we ask that you think about any specific questions you have around the proposals for vendors that are here, and be thinking about, is there, similar to the conversation we just had, right, with Intersect? And again, thank you so much, Jack and Nick and Lloyd, for fielding so many of those questions and clarifications. We want you to be thinking about which big concerns are coming up for you around any of the proposals. Are there any overlapping or conflicting proposals that you need to discuss, or any specific changes to a proposal that you want to see, right? So kind of just use those as broad framings to help you think of issues you want to bring up. And we're not constraining it to any specific budget category. This is across the board, right? So any topic is available to be brought forth. So again, you'll see in the chat, some vendors already naming their proposals who are here. Our team member Paula has also dropped in the new instructions in chat. Just a reminder to please put new topic when you're raising a new topic so that we know to differentiate that, and everyone, all the DRIPs know to differentiate that from the chatter so they know which ones to actually second with the green checkmark reaction. So with that, I'm going to open up the chat for anyone to be able to raise issues, not just DREPs. And I'll call out as I see new topics come up so that DREPs are aware in case they would like to second them. I see Britta has also included some of those framing questions here as well. We have more vendors coming in, naming that they're here. Any discussion topics people want to bring forth? We have a new topic in chat by Nana for DREPs to consider. And has been seconded by other DREPs. So Nana, if you could come off mute, I'll put 2 minutes on the timer. If you want to expand on your question, go for it.
Sure. I mean, thank you very much, Bira. So I think this question is actually, I'm understanding it from the last session we had, which is Sunday to 2 a.m. You know, I think on that particular call, I did ask a question of if, you know, TSC and IO has been able to, or let me say, for instance, I think the question really was, is IO going to engage TSC's, you know, approach in terms of, you know, implementing what they're proposing? And I mean, throughout the discussion, it seemed to me like there has not been a very clear or concise discussion between the two entities or the two organizations, if I should put it that way. So I'm wondering if that is something that they have been able to, you know, right from Sunday to now, been able to have a discussion on and found probably a good pathway going forward. If not, what can we as DREF do to help them realize this milestone? Thank you very much, brother.
Thanks, Nana. Opening up the floor for discussion for 5 minutes. Yeah, Neil, go for it. I see your hand up.
I think the TSC would love to have some input from the DREPs on this one. Okay, the DREPs, the TSC was, there's a bit of history here, but the TSC had effectively this proposal in place just before the whole pivot happened. And when we saw the pivot, we went for we made a public statement referring to the fact that we were going to do this because we were extremely concerned about continuity and about issues of making sure that all the necessary functions were in place to make sure we could deal with emergencies, continuity, making sure we didn't leave things. So we put together a budget based on the 16 or 8 proposals that had come through the process up to that point, the public process up to that point. Now, what I think our concern still remains that if you take the union, of all the other proposals, there are still gaps. And there are still essential gaps that we consider essential. So I think we have to have some notion here from the DREPs as to, we need some guidance here. How do you want to make sure that the continuity is adequately covered, that technical integration occurs so that we don't end up with competing activities that can't be integrated on chain in the long, i.e. will become failing work, etc. How do you want to handle that? Do you want to, there's somebody has to have some level of authority here in order to help organize and do this and have budget, therefore, to be able to fill in the gaps. And we're basically, I think that's our opening point. We have no problem. We have no problem with integrating activities that fall inside the core, inside the remit of the core budget, which we defined extremely tightly so as not to be seen as any form of land grab or resource grab. We were trying to define just that what we saw as the minimum to maintain the people we already have and the initial necessary steps. Would DREPs would like to give us some opinion of how they want to move forward? I think that's what I'd like to ask for. I mean, that's my ask.
Can I step in, or is it allowed?
Go on, Johnny.
Am I recognized?
Yes, yeah, Johnny, if it's part of this discussion, you can go for it.
It is directly following.
Go for it.
Yeah, so the timeline, there was a historical survey to establish what the roadmap and vision items were that ran up until December 6, 2024. That was then analyzed by the TSC to try and working with the product committee to try and get to a roadmap and vision. That was then put up as an info action and ratified by the DREPs, and that forms the basis of the proposal from the TSC itself. And it already existed as a budget that was published on Cardano Forum, and it was 1 week into the 6-week consultation process for DREPs whenever the pivot occurred or was announced. We raised issues with the board about that privately, first of all, got a response from Lawrence, who's now out of Intersect. It turned out that Lawrence wasn't speaking on behalf of the board in that email. So we then raised the issues publicly because we found out about that, and that's where the public statement came from. The public statement explicitly stated that we would be bringing back the proposal based on the survey, based on our work to verify what core was. And we have been very open in that proposal that we wish to collaborate with IOE or IOG as an existing and very important supplier. It is named in the proposal text itself, IOG, IOE. But we've been facing this absolute refusal from Charles to come to the table if a request for a proposal process is put in place, which you have very much heard in the public. So yes, we absolutely want to collaborate with IOE, IOG, any existing entity. And we actually reached out, according to Duncan Suter, our secretary, reached out to CDEC, asking Dave specifically if he'd like to come in and propose the CDEC information, and we got a response. This is from our Slack channel, so you can verify. We got a response saying all the information is available online. There's no need for us to come and propose to you. So we're happy to talk to IOE, IoT.
I know that there's a lot of energy around this discussion, and I will extend the time a little bit. Adam, I want to come to you first because your hand was up first, and then Dave, I'll come to you. But I do want to put some constraints around this discussion to answer to what's most helpful for the DREPs, right? And I think that to go back to Nana's original question, we don't want to get into a back and forth of the entire history around this as much as how do we move forward?
Context. I do apologize.
I know, Johnny.
And also, I wanted to make it very clear that we have always wanted to collaborate.
Yep. And I don't want this to become a conversation about intention as much as let's focus on the impact moving forward. So just want to put those guardrails around this conversation because this is an important topic to talk about, but we want to talk about it in a way that's most productive for DREPs to be able to make productive decisions around budget. So with that, Adam, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to put another 5 minutes on the timer around this discussion topic.
Yeah, thank you very much. There will be a statement coming from the board later today, but I did want to say that we've reviewed the situation, and while the proposal was put forward by a number of members of the TSC, it doesn't seem that it was unanimously from the TSC, and the board also does not believe that the TSC as a committee had the right to put forward this level of proposal. So what we're doing is we're allowing those members of the TSC who put forward this proposal to do so as their own organization. They're free to be an enterprise member organization of Intersect, but Intersect is not a party to this proposal. It's those members of the TSC who put it forward. And there will be a statement from the board of directors coming later today. Thanks.
Thanks, Adam. Neil, I see your hand up, but I want to come to Dave first as he had his hand up, and then I'll come to you.
No, yeah, I was just gonna say, at this point, kind of IO said all we have to say. This topic's gotten quite a bit of discussion. I think the time's better used on other teams' proposals, and was gonna ask for Intersect's perspective and the board on how we resolve this.
Dave, yeah, Neil. Oh, Neil, you're muted.
As like you can imagine, this is the first moment we have heard this at this point in time from the board. We believed we were acting with Intersect's blessing because we asked the existing. We asked through the chain of command as best as possible whether they felt this was within our remit, and we were told it was. Okay, so from the point of view that we're standing here now, we acted. I believe we acted in good faith and by talking to people at that time. But I still bring up the point that there needs to be, the community needs to resolve the issue of who's going to be able to handle the gaps. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I do agree with you that. Go ahead, John.
Sorry to jump in, but because of the potential for this concern being raised, this is why I attended as an observer to a recent Intersect steering committee meeting while the proposal on GovTools was being discussed by the TSC. I wanted to hear from other chairs and other committees what the opinions were of the proposal at that time. No negative comments were stated. No comments were stated at all. It might be because I was present as an observer. It might have influenced what discussions may have been had, but I wanted to observe to see if there were any such concerns raised, and they weren't raised at the time.
I think I heard Adam unmute, and then Lloyd, I'll come to you. Was it Adam who was talking?
My understanding is that the discussions that were going on were not complete at the time.
Yeah, this was post the proposal being existent on GovTools and it being made available publicly. So, okay.
Thanks, John. Yeah, Lloyd.
Okay, so very clearly putting my DREP hat on right now. Everyone see the DREP hat is on and not the budget committee hat at the moment, just so we're clear who's talking right now. The word gap has been used here 9 times in the last 5 minutes. Gap is the important thing. I completely 100%, 1000%, 1,000,000% support the TSC finding the gaps in the proposals and putting forward a gap-based proposal. I support this in every single committee in Intersect with my whole heart and my whole soul. Please, please, please do that. DREP hat is off, putting it away, and I'm going back to my budget committee hat. Love y'all.
Thanks, Lloyd. Philip, I had seen your hand come up for a minute. Not sure if you wanted to share.
No, sorry, it was a mistake.
All good, all good. All right. So I think in order to wrap up this topic, I do want to emphasize, and this is probably good for DREPs to continue discussion if you want to put ideas in chat or just continue afterwards, right? Neil's questions around what is helpful for you all to know specifically around these proposals, right? Especially similar to the question Intersect asked earlier, right? Is what clarifications, what information do you need, or what parts of it do you need to see change around proposals? for you to be able to vote favorably. So be thinking about those. And if you want to put those in chat, please continue to do so. I'm going to go to our next seconded topic because we have a couple of more. So our next one comes from Ken Eric around DRIPs needing to agree on priorities to fund first. So Ken Eric, if you're available to unmute, you want to come off mute and give us a little more framing for 2 minutes?
Yeah, sure. Here's the thing. Even though I'm not the biggest DREP in the Cardano ecosystem, I try to guide others and try to communicate how I am thinking. In regards to prioritizing, it's very important to do that because we have some core functionalities that are so critical that if we don't fund those things, probably the most epic bull run in the crypto history will basically fall out of hand of the Cardano ecosystem. We have to make Cardano as sexy as possible. That means we have to develop and maintenance the core of the Cardano blockchain, including layer 0 infrastructure. Second, and for Cardano to work for now and for a foreseeable future, I know it's not very sexy to fund governance, but that is actually very crucial. We have to keep in mind that what the governance structure we got now on chain is like minimum viable. There's a lot of stuff that is missing, so we need to develop and cover the operational cost of doing that. And then secondly, administration. I know that's very, very boring as well also, but you have to keep in mind that without any of the above mentioned, we are not going to have that. So that's why we need an administration or administrator, and Intersect is what we got right now. So yeah, that's my word, and I would like to hear. Yeah, and also we don't fund commercial viable products that is not self-sustainable at this moment. That will come later. Thanks.
Thanks, Ken Eric. So putting 5 minutes on the timer for discussion, but before I start, just want to point out to folks there is a new topic by Seydu and another new topic by Text for seconding by DREPs with a green check mark. So please look for those in chat. And yep, opening up 5 minutes to Ken Eric's comments. Yeah, Garrett, go for it.
Hey again, I'm just wondering what commercial projects you are trying to, pull attention away from specifically.
So for just give an example, we have stable coins proposals. We already have stable coins, and by fund, and they are supposed to be self-sustainable, but because running a stable coin is actually a very profitable business. So that's why I'm not funding those sort of things. There is a lot of, and I'm sorry this goes hard on the marketing part, but there are a lot of stuff there that should be like a catalyst proposal instead of going in like innovation stuff that is it's not sustainable. It makes we fund a project and then next year we get a bigger bill, if you understand like that. So that's why I try to steer clear of.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Garrett. Thanks, Ken Eric. Any other comments or questions around this topic? I see a comment in the chat from Philip. I'm assuming it's probably around. Yeah, go for it, Philip.
Yeah. So generally, I agree that we should not be putting too much funding or too much effort into commercial proposals because the Treasury, like a Federal Reserve, is mostly reserved for public goods and services and infrastructure, et cetera. But stablecoin issue, I think, is separate from a commercial issue. The proposals aren't to individually support some stablecoin commercial product. It's to provide an influx of liquidity to the ecosystem to address the stablecoin problem that exists on Cardano that I was discussing earlier. Like as a vendor who wants to pay my team, we make our revenue in Cardano, which is not a stable currency. So it's very difficult to manage a large team, right? When we have 14 plus employees now, if the price of ADA goes up and down, it can significantly affect our runway. So we'd like to be able to pay them in stable coins. Just the issue is with current stablecoin liquidity on Cardano, they'll lose, 10 to 15% of their salary every month selling those stablecoins, which is sort of unacceptable. They wouldn't go for this. So as an ecosystem, we need to figure out a solution to this. I'm not specifically saying these proposals provide that, but I'm saying this is a problem that needs to be considered at the protocol level with respect to like a public good.
Thanks, Philip.
Can I respond to that? So Phil, totally understand, and I also respect that we need a bigger stablecoin environment. We have a few of those big ones, so let's utilize them instead. Because adding an additional stablecoin to the ecosystem now, basically we just dilute it. Basically, what they are doing is we are having market makers earning money on fiat that comes from our treasury, if you understand what I mean. And regards paying employees utilizing stable coins and low liquidity as point out now, I have proposed a solution for that. That instead of selling to OTC desk, we sell to the ETP products, so we don't need to give them any discount on the ADA price when you are selling large amounts. So if you head over to the budget committee and treasury tooling, you will actually see how you can solve that, Phil.
Right, but indeed, these are proposals related to stablecoins on Cardano, right?
Yeah,
you're just saying we don't want to introduce new commercial stablecoins as individual proposals, but you're okay with like proposals that are aimed to address the stablecoin ecosystem as a whole, as opposed to just one stablecoin.
Yeah, so to be clarifying that, so let's say we have a need to exchange USDA or USDM. Okay, there are ways to do that without giving OTC desk rebates, and we can support the ecosystem that we already have.
Thanks so much for that discussion, Keneric. If there are any lingering thoughts around that topic, please feel free to drop them in chat, and just be sure to name the topic or at Keneric so that we can track who the comments are going for. Our next seconded topic is from Tex on marketing for the remainder of 2025. So Tex, if you want to come off mute, I'll put 2 minutes on the timer so that you can walk us through your question.
Sure. So I'm bringing this up as I'm currently sitting in the secretary position for the GMC. I was looking specifically at not only their proposal, but the fact that their proposal was adjusted to look at other community proposals and highlight those. What I found in my review is, with the exception of the summit, and mind you, I know this is very initial stages here, there seemed to be more of a negative sentiment towards the marketing proposals, and so I'm just curious what what the DREPs are thinking or feeling, so that not only GMC but also all of these other community vendors have an opportunity to, if needed, respond to any changes or answer better questions better. Is it just too lofty a goal for the considerations? It's really an open topic. I'm hoping that the community can hear from the DREPs on this based on what we're seeing. This type of surgery.
So thanks, Tex. I'll put 5 minutes on the timer for discussion around this marketing topic. So just to clarify for folks, Tex's question was, how important is marketing for the remainder of 2025? What is important for GMC and other marketing vendors to be aware of? And how should proposals change, whether it's around timeline, cost, strategy, or theory? Give it a few more seconds in case anything comes in chat, or if anyone would like to. Yeah, Juan, go for it.
I have issues with my computer. Hold on a second. Thank you, Kat. Yes,
course.
I've been playing with this. Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm ISME for marketing, growth marketing committee, and I think it's, this is one of the most important and more crucial moments in the history of cryptocurrency. Where what is going to happen in the next 6 months is going to be crucial. So I think, we have to really just think about the plane. When the plane ends, I mean, don't have more gas, what happened to the plane? And at that moment, we're talking about the bull run that is going to go through a specific moment in history that is crucial for the industry. So marketing is key. Marketing is very important. I think it's something that there is not. It comes with a package, period. You cannot disassemble the package and start picking and diming this and that. You have to really work on that, and that is why we, the product committee, the marketing committee, we are working towards that, towards maintaining stability and putting together programs that help, the name and to market Cardano as it's supposed to be, especially in this last 6 months of the year.
Thanks,
Back
Juan,
to
for
you.
that context. Thank you. Any others? Any other thoughts or questions around this topic? All right. Seeing or hearing none, I'm going to stop the timer here and jump straight into our next topic by Seydou, which has been seconded. Before I do, just want to continue to encourage everyone again for today. It's not just DREPs that can raise topics. It can be anyone on the call. They just have to be seconded by a DREP. So Seydou, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to talk to us a little bit about your question for double funding of projects.
Right. So just on that, it's just a clarification or an attention that I have to draw the community to, because during this budget submission of proposals, I could see that a lot of Catalyst funded projects are also submitted for the Cardano treasury to be funded. So going forward, specifically to the Catalyst team, what measures have they put in place, or they have already put in place, if they would like us to know? Projects submitted for the Cardano budget treasury are not repeated in the Catalyst subsequent Cardano funding. And this is just a clarification that we just have to draw our attention to, and then make sure that we don't do double funding going forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Seydou. I'll put 5 minutes on the timer if anyone from Catalyst would like to respond.
Do we have anyone from Catalyst on the line? And if not, could you summarize your question or have the facilitator summarize?
Yeah, so Seydou's question was essentially asking what measures does Catalyst implement to prevent double funding of projects at a very high level. But Seydou, if you want to expand on that again, please go for it.
Yeah, I think we're up to take that one back if the proposers aren't on the line.
Yeah, seems like they might not be.
I mean, I know they have specific control mechanisms and auditing, and many of you have probably suffered through that process on many a project, but I don't have the information here now.
I think, all right. Nana, if you're coming, that's fine. But it's important we get this settled, because going forward, or many times that we see projects being funded, and then the next catalyst fund, you see the same project, maybe the proposal will just change the name to execute the same output, probably getting another funding. We are not moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about the Intersect process here and now, we should, and I think Denny, you're actually on now, I see you, but we would not want the same project to get funding twice. I don't know how Intersect plans to handle that, or if it's a direct to DREP authority in this case, but you would never want to fund a project twice for the same project, the same exact work, right?
Yes, and it is a very similar fashion as we're organizing over the previous funding rounds, how Catalyst has operated internally as well. We have actually rules in place that prevent people from getting paid for the same work exerted twice. So that's already in place within the project of Catalyst, right? So that is the same thing, that you cannot submit the same evidence for multiple projects, multiple milestones that can be only paid once. So we have a stipulation in place that essentially you can do it only one per project. Now, obviously, with the dynamic of now having different funding sources, I think there needs to be some additional consideration. And I think that will come into play with coordination with the Intersect committee and relevant committees in place that would like to coordinate this effort and to figure out if there is some specific constraints that might be also relevant to be asking or having a disclosure policy on the Intersect side of the budget process, equally on the Catalyst, where we can reconcile if there is a potential conflict of payments where people might be, if they're getting paid for something in the treasury process on a primary line with Intersect budget, and then equally getting paid for it again in Catalyst. But by default, the position within the Catalyst over the years has been you cannot get paid twice for the same amount of the work. So that's the default position as such. But obviously, this is new dynamic. Catalyst has been the only vehicle to date, and now it opens different funding vehicles. So that there needs to be harmonization in place for sure. Does that help?
Yeah. We're not getting it clear. So how do I hear from Intersect? Is there any mechanism put in place at Intersect?
They do. I can just speak briefly to say that it is in the plan that as we go through the contract process, we look to see and ask if there's other funding that's been received to do the same work. That is part of the contracting process.
Right. That's fine. That's fine.
And Eric, I see your hand up, and I also want to highlight Alexi's question in the chat that might relate to this discussion. Can Eric go for it?
Yeah, so this is just a suggestion from my side to all the DREPs in regards double spending on the different processes. Fund the administrator and governance and include the committees in the different, let's say, buckets that we used to call them, and include them in the contracting process and prioritizing what we need to get done. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, Nana, go for it.
Yeah, and just to add to what has been discussed so far, I think DREFs should also make the attempt of utilizing the tools that are available to detect swiftly proposals that have sort of been funded by Catalyst already and are being being proposed again by maybe different vendors or probably same vendors, right? Because during my review phases, I came across certain proposals that have already been funded by Catalyst previously, but then they were being proposed by new vendors, and I had to sort of ask them to go back and then look at those proposals and then see what they can do in terms of collaboration from that angle. So DREFs can also use that as an opportunity. Again, the new addition by Lido Nation on the 1694.io governance platform, I think makes the work pretty much easy for DREFs to easily identify, these overlaps and these multiple funding requests. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nana. And I haven't seen any new topics come in yet, so I'm going to come to Alexi's question in the chat. Alexi, was this in regards to the current discussion? In case you wanted to pose that question. Yep, go for it.
Yeah, it was my guess. It was my guess. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, it was my guess to the question that was asked. I can share you our experience because dear reps requested this information, and we were really happy to share it through the comments discussion. What was not really clear, and it's just a feedback, is that my guess was that that should be somehow verified before we start kind of voting by DREPs, because it puts a lot of pressure on every DREP to ask this question and request it. But I mean, like, we were on the short notice, very short timeline. So I guess yeah, due diligence and contracting phase would be the best way to go.
Thanks, Alexi. Ken, Eric, not sure if you have your hand up to bring up something else of the discussion, or if it's just stuff from last time.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
All good, all good. All right. Anyone else around this topic? Yeah, Nicholas.
Yeah, one of the things that I was thinking about is that we desperately need some sort of data standard for any sort of treasury withdrawal that comes in, right? And I know it's complicated and everything, but if we cannot, yeah, create this kind of standard that is interoperable and can be interpreted by many different tools, I don't see a way how we can even allow treasury withdrawals of being passed, because if we lock ourselves into one tool to audit everything, I mean, that's just yeah, disaster in my opinion, or could lead to disaster. So I think we should find a way of how to create, I don't know, a CIP standard on how the different treasury withdrawal recipients then need to report back on chain in a way. I'm not technical enough for that, but yeah, it's maybe that's something that could happen.
Yeah, thanks, Nicholas. And I see a couple hands raised again. Since I don't see any new topics in the chat, I'm gonna continue time for this discussion. But please, if you do have a new topic, we only have about 10 or so minutes left around here before we shift into our final question for you all before closing. So just be sure to get those in chat if so. Ken, Eric, I'm coming to you and then to Lloyd.
Yes, so hi, Nico. You know what? Talk with the team at the Cardano Foundation who manage project Reeve. Fully accounting enterprise level, can import from other enterprise accounting systems as well, and they will compile. Reeve will compile and post metadata on chain as you suit. And this way we can have audit on yeah, very low level if we want to.
Thanks, Ken, Eric. Lloyd, go for it.
Just to add that in the smart contract working group, there is already discussion around what that kind of standard would look like, Nico, so that, you know, this data, as much as possible, is already on chain, easily accessible, you know, documented. Reeve came up as one of the options, one of the many options that we have been able to discuss so far. So it's a topic of discussion. It's not finished yet, but yes, it is one of those things that we definitely have to build in as we mature this process.
Thanks, Lloyd. Alexi.
Yeah, I just wanted to react what was just said about this kind of standard of exchange of information. My wish would be to find a kind of middle ground between, like, make it very rigid, because we still want, for example, to have the project that are budgeted, but they can still participate in Catalyst with the innovative ideas. So we can bootstrap and proof test things. So yeah, let's not over engineer it and keep ourselves agile.
Yeah, Nana.
Yeah, and I think us probably we would continue to fund catalyst activities. Maybe we should be able to state categorically which proposals should should come to the treasury for funding, and then which one should go to catalyst for funding, just so that we don't turn this whole treasury access into a catalyst 2.0 initiative. Maybe we should do that, or look at probably getting that done along the lines.
Thanks, Anna. Really great, compelling topic, clearly. Glad we gave it a little bit of that extra time needed. And just going to pause here. We have time for one more topic to be raised before we move into our final question for the DREP's consideration. So I'm going to give it a few seconds here to see if there are any new topics to be raised in chat. Okay. Seeing no new topics come into chat. Danielle, I see you unmuted. You want to share anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to check. It does look like the one around Cardano governance work streams and the kind of reply reinforcing it both have a check against it. Do you want to raise that?
Yeah, we can. I wasn't sure, Max, if that was a new topic or if you were just commenting. But yes, if it is a new topic, then by all means, please, I'll give you 2 minutes.
He
Go
had to
for it.
drop. So
Oh, he
I
had to
don't
drop.
think he's here
Okay.
anymore. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, if DREPs, if you want to talk a little bit about this proposal or give feedback, we are recording this session so that Max can view it back and see. By all means, I'll put 5 minutes on the timer. Yeah, Jose. Oh, you're muted, Jose.
Thank you. I wanted to thank Max and the whole delegate team. I just more than actual questions on specific topics, wanted to hear a little bit of the substance and the rationale behind the whole effort. I think it's a good opportunity for everyone to, and myself included, because I have not been part of that effort, to get more familiarized with what is that they're aiming to do in this proposal.
Thanks, Jose. Not sure if, because I know Max is no longer on the call, if there's anyone that can speak a little bit to that. And if not, continue bringing your questions or comments.
Yeah, and actually the same would apply for IOG's proposal that I saw Michael raise the issue earlier, a little bit ago. We haven't talked about it.
You guys hear about the thought process behind the beyond minimum viable governance as well?
Yeah, right.
I'll turn it over to you, Michael, actually.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Jose. So I think as we're all experiencing with this first attempt at governance and going through not only this budget process, but the on-chain voting process around it, there's a lot of areas for improvement to be made. And that was kind of always the intention of the governance system when it was developed. We knew it was going to be imperfect, but I think the best way to learn about the ways it needs to be improved is to look at the real world data and experience of the first year, right? What happens? How do we get an understanding of what the needs are of different stakeholders, of DREPs, of constitutional committee members? So the approach that we're taking as part of that proposal is to go through both a quantitative approach to looking at the on-chain data and a qualitative approach to interviewing all of these stakeholders and matching those up to identify what the biggest pain points in governance from the first year are, and then make recommendations in the form of SIPs or CPSs that can be implemented to improve on those pain points. But we really need to kind of take a research-driven approach to understanding what the problems are from year one.
Thanks, Michael. Go for it, Jose.
Thanks. No, I just want, so maybe we could help us understand a little bit if there's any overlaps and if there's any collaboration between the delegate team and the IOG's proposal. and how do you work around potential overlaps?
Yeah, so I think one of the areas of overlap came out of the successful constitutional process from last year. Both kind of we identified along with the delegate group the success of hosting workshops in various locations around the world because of the depth of access that gave us to the community and the opportunity to elevate voices that are not normally included in this process. And so we've been in talks with Max and the other members of the delegate committee, depending on the outcome of this, of how we want to collaborate. And several members of that committee have already put their names forward with our proposal as well to be workshop hosts, but also to support as interviewers as we do our research gathering, analysts and so forth. So they've been integrated into our proposal. And then talking to Max, kind of the inverse is true as well in the should their proposal succeed, and I think they have a really innovative approach to administration of governance-related funds, we would propose to do our project under the administration of their project and the multi-sig funds administration that they've developed. And so, yeah, there's kind of two scenarios depending on the outcome of this process.
And would in case of both getting funded and synergies being achieved by both pursuing the same goals and achieving efficiencies on the funding, are those funds being returned to the treasury, or are they used to amplify the scope of the projects for any collaboration in that regard? Sorry.
Yes, I would say so. If both get fully funded, there is overlapping scope. We would work with the delegate group, and yeah, if it were determined that the full funding amount was not needed, we would return a portion of the treasury and coordinate with them.
Awesome. Thank you both. And with that, we are closing this part of the budget conversations. And we are going to now go into a critical question that the team has for you all, especially DREPs, to consider. So with that, Britta, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Kat. And the next question is, before we finalize the reconciliation workshop, and the ask from DREPs is, how would you like to allow and deal with change requests? I know this is a broad question, but the thinking is, would you want to wait until the close or allow them simultaneously? And this is a question specifically to the DREP community. Yeah, Danielle, please come on you to clarify anything.
I just want to provide a little bit of extra clarity around the constraints and why this is being asked. So as we go through these discussions, some vendors may get additional feedback and want to update the proposal, make trade-offs. And so we want to offer that within the reconciliation cycle so the DREPs can decide with some amended changes, especially if they've requested like a change. So with the polling tool right now, it's intentionally built so that proposals are locked. They're not changing while you're voting on them as a DREP. And so if a vendor is saying and signaling that they want to make a change to their proposal, would you like to see a new ballot that says version 2, this is updated proposal, and put your poll in before May 5th? Or would you rather see the poll close and then changes be added as a new poll following the existing polls being closed? So the constraint is we can't allow the vendors to update the proposal in the existing ballot. So if there's any feedback or strong opinions either way, that's what we are curious about understanding to better inform that decision. And I see, Nico, you're saying no updates. I'll be clear. In either way, the existing proposals in the voting tool do not get updated. It would be essentially asking for an approval on an amendment.
The reps in the room asking you for input, please. This is your chance to give feedback how you want change requests to make. Oh, Jose, please go ahead.
Actually, I think Nicholas was there.
Oh, Nicholas, sorry. Yeah, thank you for that. Nicholas, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I would prefer if updates happen, and I understand that there's a need sometimes for updates, it should just reset the vote counter to 0, because basically I think we're not in the state where we can choose and have someone look over what did the proposer change a comma, did the proposer change the number from 100 million to 300 million. So I think the fairest approach would either be to not allow any edits in one cycle, then have a 2-day cycle where they can edit their proposals, and then they have another cycle of voting, or you just when you update a proposal, you just reset your whole voting counter. So you better think twice about changing your proposal. And I know some of you who are here had budget proposals that they edited 74 times. So yeah, just saying that.
Can I just clarify that the situation where changing a proposal without resetting the vote is not possible in the tool? So you don't have to worry about a vendor updating the proposal. So I did hear, though, that sounded like you maybe would prefer that we wait to provide the amendments until the poll closes and then just do another ballot that says this is the complete list of proposals that have changed. This is a fresh vote, and the previous one will no longer be counted. That's what I'm interpreting.
Okay, Nicholas has confirmed that. All right. We move on to Jose, please.
Yeah, so I guess we have under that umbrella or under that question, we have 2 moments. One is, of course, the current moment in which we are, proposers being able to edit their proposals before the actual budget governance action submitted. And I guess, well, I adhere to what has been said. And then we have the question of projects bumping into unforeseen circumstances in which they actually need to revisit the definition of their original proposal for some reason. And I think that we are definitely not ready to do so, but taking inspiration in current Catalyst's proposal for that is a good starting point, where proposers would submit a change request, and there should be a community conformed group that can actually allow for those to be changed, so that the milestone can actually be adjusted with the blessing of the community, with the legitimacy that is given to a group of people.
Thank you so much, Jose. Any other thoughts around the change requests? Be helpful, DREPs. This would be your chance to express your view. Yes, Nana, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. I think the frequent change in processes has also somewhat contributed to some of the DREPs not having full confidence in Intersect and even its project. And I think we need to set a very good precedent such that going forward, in the subsequent years to come, in any budget process, we don't have to be going back and forth with proposals having almost a chance every step of the way to refine their project. So what I'm trying to say is that just like we have experienced with Catalyst, where they set periods for vendors to, put together their proposals and submit, we should also look at bringing such initiative into this whole budgeting funding process, so that vendors know that they have at least, say, maybe they have a month or two to put together their proposals, and then they have 2 weeks or another month to refine their proposal based on feedbacks collected. And then afterwards, it is closed; they can't touch it anymore. Then it goes to the it goes through to the polling, and then once the polling is done, we convey what we have to convey, and then put it in as an info action. That way, it becomes a very streamlined process, and then there's a lot of these bottlenecks are removed, and it also gives Intersect that control and confidence, in the face of DRS, because now they know that the process is very smooth and very straightforward. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes, go ahead, Tevo.
I agree with Nana to kind of segregate it. One thing I would probably kind of keep in mind is when for each direct to actually go through this proposal and do a proper review, it does take a lot of time. And when the change requests come in, or like based on our feedback, there's a lot of stuff we're going to change. When I'm a reviewer, what I like is when people at the top of the paragraph say, these are the things we changed. And I know right now none of our tools are really providing that opportunity. So we need to manually each section maybe in right here I changed something, here I didn't. So yeah, if there is possibility, then maybe create either tooling that has like these are the areas we touched or changed, so we don't have to focus on the whole body of text, because there are a lot of proposals that have like very like deep text behind it, a lot of like assets, appendices, and then you don't want to really go through of them, but only see how is it changed and what was changed, and what maybe even why it was changed, like what feedback it was addressed. Because sometimes, yes, you do the change, but then you have other problems. You solved one, but you created two new ones. So if you have this kind of log of why and like links together over third change, you perhaps going to get, aha, now I know where we're trying to forward this proposal.
Yeah, makes sense. I think we will probably have that flexibility to add that information for the next poll when those would go in the Ecclesia voting tool. So I'll make sure that we try to do that if possible.
Yeah, thanks. And there are a few comments in the chat: a change log, a list of revisions, or from tax. The GMC proposal includes a new paragraph at the beginning of the proposal defining a revision. Is this acceptable? Yeah, so. Sorry, that was my cat. Any other input from the DREPs? Great conversation and discussion so far. Great input. Thank you.
I think we're good then.
All right, thank you so much. We are going over to a final close. And before I do that, I wanted to ask if anyone, okay, Johnny, quick comment.
Very quick, just about if there's revisions to proposals. I've been a bit distracted emotionally, so I apologize if it's already come up and been discussed in the last 20 minutes. But I personally, if there's going to be changes to proposals, believe that there should be a snapshot of what support the previous revision had, and it should be kept as a historical record. And any revisions then reset the count of vote to 0 and start again, so that there isn't a conflation of the idea that the previous version versus the new version has support or has removed support. You get what I'm saying. If things change, you can't bring forward a vote because it's changed.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think both of that has been in Thibaut just mentioned.
Sorry,
similar,
I
but
wasn't.
No, okay.
Emotionally present.
And then there was an earlier discussion about the setting back of votes, yes and no. So you may also want to go back to the recording or to the live stream.
I shall.
But Johnny. And with that, I'm asking everyone in the room, has every DRAP been in the tool? I'm asking this because normally we have a demo, which we're not doing today, but if not, we can put the guide for the tool, for the voting tool into the chat. Everyone has been in the tool. If you need the guide, please voice yourself now. We don't want to overflow you with too many informations. And it looks that we're good. So before we close, I would like to put a link in the chat. Please don't drop. And for your survey and review, as you know, we're piloting, we're testing, we're experimenting, and I would really like you to give us feedback on this workshop, also input maybe what can be better in this process. As we go along and adopt where we need it to adopt. And with that, it's been a long day and great conversations. Anything else from you? If not, this was phase 1 of the budget reconciliation process. And we just wrapped it up with today's workshop. And with that, I see you for phase 2. Oh, the voting. Oh, Danielle, just post if you have the voting tool link, there's a comment from Juan.
Yeah, I wouldn't have to have it. I've been there, but yeah. So
just a second, we dig it out.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel.
Yep, it's in the chat.
With that, we are closed. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and I see the team shortly as I stop the live stream.